There we go. Okay. This is September 2020, 15th on Tuesday evening. I am Charles Stewart. I'm hosting the conference for our Supreme Court of Law for the USA, and I'd like to open with a brief word of prayer to the Supreme Spirit Force of the universe. This is a spirit battle that we're in. True God, Yahweh, Jehovah, God of Israel, God of the Bible, we thank you. We pray that you will guide and direct this conversation to advance your kingdom of truth and justice and peace on this earth. We're having a lot of troubles down here with lack of truth and justice and peace, and we do need your assistance. Please bless us as we endeavor to promote truth and justice and peace in the same manner as your precious Son, Jesus Yeshua, did 2,000 years ago. And in his name we humbly pray these things. Amen. And thank you all for indulging me in that formality. And the prayer thing was the first item on the agenda. The second item is to ask for anybody if they've got any issues they would like to put on the agenda for upcoming conferences. Yeah, it looks like we've got a small group here. So I'll skip right past that. And inbox, the item 2, item 3 is our Canadians. And item 4 is superstates. Yes. And Gloria, you've been notified, probably received the email, and you're usually with Lewis's group there in Michigan. Is that correct? Yeah, I thought I recognized your name. Glad to have you with us, Gloria.
Thank you.
And I see we've got Jonathan Morias. Would you like to say hi, Jonathan? Are you muted? Okay. Well, I guess I can go. We don't have. I don't see anybody from Canada, and that's usually what was item number 3 there. So I'd like to briefly go on to item number 4, is our superstates, which is how we're trying to organize the USA so that we can assemble a Supreme Court of Law, because we need each of our 12 jurors to represent 1/12 of the total nation of the United States. And the web link to the main web page there shows the map of how it's designed to be organized. But with just a small group like this, I hate going directly into an agenda with preconceived messages. I'd like to ask the people in attendance what's in their mind and just have a roundtable talk session, more or less. And yeah, I would like to ask Cynthia or Abraham or Gloria or Jonathan or Ella from New Jersey. I didn't catch your name right. I'm sorry. But do any of you have anything heavy on your mind or anything on the agenda that you'd like to talk about? Gloria, Cynthia, anybody?
Well, this is Cynthia. I am really concerned about, because of my situation that I'm going through right now, is to make sure that I have the right status and the time limit that I'm in right now, to make sure I have the status to do what I'm doing so it can be more productive. And actually, I want to find out more about that, like my legal stand of when I send out these paperwork and stuff like that, do I have my copyrights and stuff like that, and how long would it take? And like I was telling you earlier, I have problems with going to the court of clerk to have that clocked in. But I was also told that I can put it on any public record. And this guy that I was dealing with, he has like a Facebook page that has a national record recording situation, but he has to be the one that put it on there, but it's in the public. And he said that would do just as well, besides putting it in the newspaper, because I don't have time, and having it put into the court records at the courthouse.
Yeah, basically all you need to do is have an affidavit swearing that this is who you are, and if anybody is going to challenge that, they got to swear, submit sworn testimony in their own affidavit saying that you're lying. And if nobody does that, which probably nobody will do, then an unrebutted affidavit stands as truth.
Yes, I have the affidavit. I have it, and I have it signed by a notary. But my understanding was that I have to put it in the public eyes.
Well, the court record is part of the public eye once you file it in the court record.
They're not allowing me. They say they don't do, in South Carolina, they don't do copyright.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're not trying to file a copyright. You're trying to file evidence of who you are.
Come.
Well,
do you have a trust, Gloria? Do you have a trust?
I have a Cynthia.
Yes, I do, Cynthia.
This is L.E. Whoever it is that has the whatever court situation. Have you done a trust? Any type of trust?
Well, I have a irrevocable trust, a banking account trust.
Have you done probate?
No. Well, in my case, because my husband passed away.
What kind of case do you have?
It's a common law case, and what I have to do is I'm sorry.
Okay. Hello?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. What kind of case is it?
Well, it's a common law case of, well, actually, I don't know what it's common law, basically, for me to appear. What happened was that my husband passed away, and I never got, like, married at the courthouse, but we did common law marriage, and I had my certificate and everything showing that we were married. But every time I go to the probate to go over his estate, because the house is in his name, and they're not showing me up. They say that I have to do this, I have to do that, and every time I go there, they always turn me around. And all the paperwork that they sent, they're asking for somebody to stand up if they will have interest in the property. But when I go to do that, I even went to court when they had the hearing there to show that I have interest in the property. But the judge told me that I have to go through the probate situation and ask me to leave.
What's the probate situation that he's talking about that you have to go through?
He said that I have to go to show, and I have to go to the courthouse to go over his estate.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. They were saying that I have to be over his estate, and every time I go to the probate, they tell me I don't have enough information to prove that I am his wife to go over his estate, that I even have any type of...
So it's a big runaround.
Yes.
Abraham, do you have her information?
Yes,
My
I have Cynthia's number, but I'm sure she'd be more than happy to give it to you as well.
Yes. Could I just text you and then you can just so we don't talk on here. I don't want to talk about that on here.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay.
Yeah, because it's being recorded. So.
All right, I'll forward you her number.
Okay. All right, it's Cynthia?
yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. I'm going to get you on the phone with someone.
Okay.
Later on. If it's not tonight, it'll be tomorrow. But what time zone are you in?
I'm at Eastern Standard Time, but any time will be fine with me.
Okay, I'm Eastern as well. Okay, that's fine.
May I ask who you are?
Of course, you can ask. Absolutely. My name's Elisa. I do a lot.
Your name is. I'm on. Okay, your name is Elisa?
Elisa, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
It looks like a few others have joined with us. Would anyone like to say hi, introduce themselves?
Yes, Charles Cliff from Michigan.
Cliff, you made it. Great to hear your voice.
Yes, oh yes, I wouldn't miss it.
All right, glad to have you here.
This is Gloria from Michigan.
Who's this? Who just spoke?
This is Gloria Charles from Michigan.
Yes, Gloria. I'm glad you're here with us also.
Greetings, Charles. Lewis, Michigan as well. Just popped in. I had a little time. I'll have just about 45 minutes or so I wasn't going to say anything. But
I'm glad you did say
I'm on the line as
something.
well.
I'm glad to have you with me.
Okay, thank you. And Elisa, good to hear your voice on the call.
Hi, how you doing, Louis?
I'm doing good. Good to hear you.
Good to hear you as well.
And this is Nikki in Pennsylvania, and ditto to Lisa.
Hey,
glad
Nikki.
To hear
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Glad to hear you. Okay.
Glad to hear you as well. All the good people, right?
That's right.
That's
okay.
right. That's right. One, two. Why over there bickering? Just get this done.
Coming together. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and mute out.
Me too, because you can hear Peanut in the background here.
All right. I'm glad a lot of you know each other here. And I think I know most of you too, but I do think there's a few new people here for me too. We don't have any people from Canada, it looks like this evening, at least so far. So I'm rather skipping that portion of our agenda, and I'm thinking of combining the two next items that are talking about organizing our superstates at the higher levels, and at the next level, or at the lower levels, organizing our townships, precincts, and counties. And I'd like to reemphasize that we're living in precarious times, and we need to find better solutions than what is currently available through our Patriot community. I don't see very many phone conferences or other organizing efforts that really have the potential to stop what clearly appears to many of us to be an evil scheme to reduce us all to slavery. And I think that is a very pressing concern, and I think our general Patriot community needs to reach down deeper and to become more serious at confronting the root cause of the problems that we're facing. And I do believe that many of the remedies that are being advocated by many of the groups are actually purposefully disempowered to mislead us away from where the real power is at. Please note that the people who are engineering our slavery here, that they're trying to yoke us under, they have control of the Federal Reserve banking system, and they've got lots of money to hire lots of moral prostitutes. And on top of that, they've got a lot of mind control slaves that have just been traumatized, that don't know any better. And between those two groups, we're surrounded by people that are feeding us disinformation routinely. So it's really important for each of us to make our own decisions. And I don't like to overly Bible thump or anything, but this is a spiritual battle, I do believe, and each of us are, I believe, going to be held accountable in the spirit realm for how we respond to this evil. And it's very dangerous to just be looking to men or women that are sounding good, that sound like they know what they're talking about, and that seem to have a big group following. That's very dangerous. I emphasize there's no substitute for doing your own homework. Each of us need to do our own homework and to know in our own heart before God whether or not it seems really right to us for the strategy that we're embracing in order to fight this big, ugly evil that is taking over our country. And so I beg you, please, do your own research with regard to all of the gurus in this movement, including those of us involved in this conference, and do not, please, just accept anybody's word on the surface value. Delve into it and compare. A lot of us in leadership positions are critical of each other. We're moving in different directions. So it's really useful to see what one leader of a group or a conference is saying about the others, and vice versa, because that'll usually show you the best arguments when one leader is criticizing another. And at that point, you'll be focusing probably on issues of important concern, and you'll decide for yourself which leader is actually making sense and which ones are just here to deceive. I swear before God that there are people in this movement that are here purposefully trying to deceive us. So please be very careful about who you elect to follow or take their words about things, about the most effective strategy. Just please be very concerned about that. And thereunder, I'd like to point out one of our group's most important elements is the level of organizing at the grassroots. In item number 4 or 5 on our agenda here, let me see which one it is actually. Yes, it's number 5 on our agenda. There's a few web links in there to related documents, but this is the common law model of organizing that was working real good in the older versions of England before the Roman Empire model of slave trading government came in and perverted English common law into a perverted and adulterated form. Most people that are talking about common law today, they either don't comprehend or they prefer not to talk about the version of common law that was in place in more ancient England prior to 1066 AD, the event of the Norman Conquest. Prior to that date, the people were free. They had their own smaller, responsibly self-governing communities of 10 households. Those were called townships, and their chief officer was a town constable. He collected their tithing donations, which were voluntary. There was no coercive taxation. And William Blackstone points out he wrote in 1750 or so, before the American Revolution, that the laws of England, these common laws about the townships and stuff, they're based upon the ancient biblical law referenced in Exodus 18, where Moses and his father-in-law are talking about how to bring justice to the people of Israel. And Moses' father-in-law told Moses that he needs to appoint captains over smaller communities of 10 households and 50s and hundreds and thousands. And those people, the captains of each of those jurisdictions, are to do their best to try to bring justice in response to each of the complaints that's brought before each of the leaders of each of those communities. And when we have a system like that, then that decentralizes the power. At that point, there is no inclination or reason to coercively centralize everything in a big federal government like what we've got over the United States of America today, things like Social Security and welfare and control of the money supply. That's all done at the federal level in modern times. And that's an unbiblical centralization of power. It's in violation of common law and biblical law. And it's in violation of natural law, because all of these things should be able to be taken care of in smaller communities without us having to ask big brother government, the nanny state, for permission to do things that we should be able to handle in our local communities. And through those smaller communities also is decentralized the very, very important powers of executive law enforcement and peacekeeping. The captain of the 10 household township community is called a town constable, and he or she have the right to carry a badge and a gun, and to use whatever force is necessary in order to keep the peace within their township community. And technically speaking, they've got the right to arrest the President of the United States if they sincerely believe that they can make a case that that person has caused a breach of the peace in their township. So the power is immensely decentralized under the model of government that we're trying to advocate here, and it's part of our constitutional system. There's many constitutional documents, state and national, as well as many statutes, state and national, that reference town constables, justice of the peace, judicial officers for the precinct levels. That's at the 100 court level in that Exodus 18 hierarchy. And so we've got the capability of curing all our problems as a matter of law, but we just don't have the people organized in this lawful manner to begin exercising the authority of these very powerful but presently vacant offices. And so that is a main thrust of what this conference is dedicated to, and I dare suggest most of the other conference leadership, they don't have a detailed plan or the historical, biblical, or common law roots to the smaller communities like what we're presenting here. And hereunder, I would like to welcome everybody to what I believe is really a very advanced conference here, intended to promote real remedies that are, with all due respect to the other good people in the other conferences, I believe this conference is setting a higher standard for empowerment to our common people, and I'd really like to welcome everybody to find your own level of comfort and participate herein, but I do hope you'll stay and continue working with us to try to bring real grassroots empowerment to the people as opposed to the goofiness that seems to be surrounding us on all of these issues. At this point, I'd like to yield for comments or questions.
So this is Elisa.
Yeah, Alicia, please go ahead.
Hi, Charles. So, as you were talking about the history So that was at a time when we didn't have the billions of people on the earth, and so the communities were much smaller, and we didn't have the big, skyscrapers in New York City and projects and, the suburbs. The probably might be easier with the developments in the suburbs because it's a development. Maybe you go block by block. So how do you do that with so many people on the planet now, and so many people that are concentrated in, a 1 block radius or diameter? So, when you said like 10 households, and I'm comparing it to 10 households, geez, in New York City, that's, 1 floor, in one of these buildings. It's actually probably more than, 1 floor. There are many more families. So it's almost as if you have to do like either that whole building, and just bringing that up because there's just so many people on the planet now. So how do you carry that over to, today? And this is really, not just this conference and the folks here, but just in general. Doesn't matter where it is, in what country. I wonder how do we remedy that or deal with that?
If I may give it a
Louis, yes, go ahead.
Well, and let me first say, when I was saying greetings to Elisa, let me also say I think I heard the voices of both Cliff and Gloria and Nikki as well, and greetings all others. Elisa, I understand exactly what you're saying, be it that not only I'm here on Michigan, but specifically on the land known as Detroit. So we have a density, a population density that I believe I comprehend. What I'm finding is everyone in that building is not going to be receptive. And what we're faced with is I'm finding that, you cannot harness power that you don't know you have. So as we engage and kind of introduce the concepts to the masses, it's really a certain percentage that what we found will embrace. And we are looking to create multiple townships, comprehending completely that we will have hundreds, if not thousands, of townships on a county such as Wayne County, which is similar to, let's say, a Cook County of Illinois, which includes Chicago, or something like that, whereas, the focus is expanding beyond the township and the township constable to the justice of the peace level and the 100 court, and actually putting in place, jury verdicts, but we're looking to establish multiple 100 courts within one county because of the population, because of what you've mentioned. So what we're finding is within that building, within one building, and this is the concept that I see that some have difficulties comprehending, that some will opt out. Some will choose not to, participate in the republic and opt to continue occupying their subject / citizen / slave status, and are comfortable with it, more than comfortable, happy, in fact. So within that same building, there may, if that building has 200 people domiciled there may be, 50 that are outside of the jurisdiction of the de facto. And I think that's what we need to focus on, building our community, and then being able to insulate ourselves from the things that are happening within the de facto. Complete protection of rights, whether it be trespass of rights, trespass of property, You know, there's all kind of craziness going on at this point. So it begins the protection of our community. And we might be living right next door to one that has, you know, is very comfortable with calling the police, for example, for whatever, you know, situation that might occur, and engaging with that entity and within the corporation when you will not, you know, or the common law man or woman living right next door will not, but will look towards their own community. So I think that's where the networking and the communication within the community and the township constable is so important. Just my opinion. I yield.
Thank you, Louis. Alicia, did you have any follow-up on that?
No, only something that Louis pointed out. Say you have 200 people. Some of those buildings are going to have, you know, a lot more people. You're in the suburbs, you know, lots of neighbors, like I said, you know, developments. And you could just be living right next door to, on either side of you and across the hall from you are people, you know, they're triangulating you. And, you know, they're prone to, you know, calling the police for any little situation. And just wondering how, you know, we handle all of that.
Yeah.
He's right. He's right. I mean, there are going to be a number of people who still want to vote for Biden. I mean, I'm sorry, the demons. I'm sorry. Sorry. Gosh, that slipped out. I'm sorry. I was on tape too.
You are.
May I make a comment? This is Cynthia.
Hi, Cynthia.
Hi. Actually, I was going over a lot of different things because I'm trying to learn a lot of stuff that's going on and what you're talking about. But I know it could take place because even, I believe it's Iceland. I was trying to find it on the internet where I found they took over. They put the bankers in jail, the people that came together, and now they're running their their communities almost like what you're saying, and they have a platform because they were like talking about how Ireland took over the bankers, put people in jail. They did it. They came together and they did it. And they were saying that's what we need to do. We're giving them stimulus package and stuff like that for the bankers to save the bankers. They stopped that, and they took control. And they're doing that right now. I just listened to the YouTube about it, but they really took control of their own communities. So we probably need to look at what they did and stuff like that and try to, you know, you just get like pieces and pieces from everybody's trying to build their own community, and then incorporate it into what we want for ourselves and start building from there because they took control of it.
If I might jump, thank you, Cynthia. I'd like to point out in response to Alicia, if I'm sounding it right, the question there that I think a lot of your concern was about people in your own neighborhood calling the police.
Louis just happened to mention that.
Okay, well, that's a legitimate concern, and it points out a lot of the dynamic that a lot of people are not familiar with, that it is good to explain here exactly how this should break, because the police authority is a franchise, a municipal franchise from the state. Your local city police department is a municipal police department, and it's emergency war powers because the people aren't responsibly self-governing in their own precincts and the smaller township jurisdictions. See, of critical importance in this entire strategy is sending documents to the local police department and the mayor and the county sheriff and the attorneys for the city and the county, and sending out lots of constructive notices telling those municipal, local governmental authorities that we're claiming the vacant offices of Justice of the Peace of the Precinct, which is a very powerful judicial office, and they're under the Town Constable executive offices for each of the 10 townships within one of the precincts of the county. And when we send out those letters are basically typed up to say, if you have any objection to our exercising authority in this traditional common law manner, as was our constitutional model of government under organic traditional law, then please notify us of your objection and your basis in law for why you think we're doing something wrong. And the solid fact is that we're doing everything right. There's nothing wrong that we're doing. And they will most likely fall silent. If they don't, well, that'll be an interesting discussion, but I think that discussion's winnable. And the only other alternative is that they will fall silent. At that point, you send a follow-up letter saying, okay, I see that you've defaulted. You haven't said anything here. Please tell your police officers that if they get any calls for anybody in this 10% of the precinct that I'm claiming as my township here, that those police officers need to give me a call before they come into this township and start flashing their badges or their guns here, because I'm the chief officer, I'm the town constable of this township jurisdiction under our precinct. When lots of people do that, it'll be very powerful, and just one individual alone doing it will be rock solid under law, and it will cause them a lot of difficulties, because at that point the police have had notice that de jure legitimate, locally controlled government is in place here, and in essence it's an act of treason, an act of war for a police officer to move against a town constable that has presented paperwork that he's doing legitimate work in trying to keep the peace in that local township jurisdiction. So we've got the moral high ground and we've got the legal high ground, and once we file our paperwork and let the local police and city and county attorneys and other authorities know of our existence and our claim of authority over these township and precinct jurisdictions, at that point, we've got the moral high ground and the legal high ground, and it's basically an act of war for them to trespass into our townships or precincts if we've clearly told them that they need to notify our officers in control of those jurisdictions before they go coming in here. And that should neutralize anybody that's a malcontent in the community, that's not a qualified elector, that is calling the police instead of relying on the local peace officers that we're providing here. That should neutralize their troublemaking invitation to the police, and because the police should back off, because their county and city attorney should be smart enough that these are sovereign local jurisdictions, and there's somebody here that seems to think they know what they're doing, and they're claiming the sovereignty, and that's a very powerful thing, and I do believe it'll cause the police officers to back off and respect our jurisdictions. I'll yield on that point.
If I may.
Name and state, please.
This is David in Michigan, and I just want to keep saying every time I hear you talk like that, Charles, it's just music to my ears, for one thing. And I would just might add to that we start becoming more involved in our local media advertising and things, and maybe put get some bumper stickers that say "Common Law is Common Sense," and put a website there along with it, and start putting little ads in local newspapers and things like that call attention to the fact that there's a new sheriff in town, or something like that. So I yield.
Charles,
Cliff, yes.
Yes, I'd like to add on to what David said. I like that, David. I've been saying this for years, and now I think it's time. If we would have formed a group of electors and fixed it where the dedicated people put in $25 a month for 1 year, non-refundable, but if you miss 3 payments, you're out, we give you back a payment in full. And we buy a building on a tax sale for peanuts. Now we've got a building where it can be headquarters. It can be called the government or whatever you want to call it. And if we get that building for taxes, which ought to be peanuts, now we've got a place to meet. Now we can rent the place out on the weekend for weddings, cabarets, or whatever that'll produce money. And it also an educational class. And it is benefiting us all together. So that's something I want to push this group to another level. And that's my recommendation, and I yield.
Thank you, Cliff. Yes. Further comments, questions from anybody? I would like to expand a little bit.
Lewis of Michigan. I'm sorry, I was double muted. It took me a moment to clear that. I just wanted to say, Charles, that I agree 100% with the what you just outlined, and once that's actually been done, and when I say that, I'm speaking of the constructive notices and those structures in place, we can then expand on that into the other areas that I know that many people are concerned about and some are already working on now, such as travel. Some people are working on things such as, and I mean, individually across the country or various assemblies, travel documents, things along this line, or along this nature. It is my belief that it is not the travel document, but the plate itself which needs to be targeted, meaning as long as one has a plate, which is the state of, fill in the blank, then that indicates to those agencies that one is participating in the commerce game. And upon the traffic stop, one then must defend that presumption. And that's where those travel documents and identifications that people are working on then come into play. I say attack the plate. Remove the plate saying state of, indicating that you are not operating in commerce, but simply traveling, exercising the right to travel. So once, and I don't want to jump the gun here, so I want to be clear. As Charles has indicated in his statement, that notices, a number of constructive notices, are delivered both among to the municipal governments, the county governments, the state governments, and once that has been done, I would take it a step further, because they've contacted me before. They've stood on my front porch, and I'm talking those agencies such as the FBI. And I would take it a step further and notice them as well, so that it is not simply the state of Michigan that is notified, but equally all other state agencies of that United States corporation. So I just wanted to piggyback on that the foundation and what Charles is speaking of, I think is very important. Once that's set, we then can expand upon that into all other areas of concern, I think, of many on this call and that are not on this call. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Lewis.
Charles, Cliff again.
Yeah, Cliff, go ahead.
Okay, well, that's where I think the benefit of what Lewis just said, if it's well known that there is a building, an establishment, a group of people that through Zoom could be updated or giving the documents that they need for their state, because some state has taken the lead. That's the reason I'm pressing. And if you can, we need to get a consensus on that particular incident, and I yield.
We need a consensus on what point there, Cliff? Can you expand a little bit? I missed the point.
Yeah, as to people in favor of that, because we've got to be in favor of something. I mean, we've been knowing each other for years, and I think if the need to know people in government knew that there was a building where all mail would go there in relationship to what they think we're doing or how we're doing it, and we're organized, if we had a building of our own with the name on it, I see it being more powerful than, a bunch of phone calls 2 or 3 times a week only, where we can't establish ourselves. And if we get established, they got to, recognize that and respect that. And I yield.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That's a nice focus, Cliff. Especially, a lot of what we're doing here is trying to organize nationally, and so it inherently takes phone conferences, because we're all spread out nationally. But in the local communities, like you're focusing on there, Cliff, yes, that would be ideal. And I would only say I've made a bit of progress while I was working with people on a CPS case here locally and laying some foundational grassroots efforts at organizing in this local Coleman County, Texas here that I'm in, population 8,500 or so for the whole county. And it's I've been in their courthouse working on that CPS case a number of times, and with a small population, they don't have a whole lot of things going on in the courthouse a lot of the time. And frequently, the main big courtroom itself is vacant, and there's other rooms in that courtroom that are like jury deliberating rooms that are also vacant. And I can't help but think that instead of trying to get a commercial building, it would be much more harmonious with the serious new model of government propositions that we're advancing for us to try to go into those official governmental buildings and talk to the county clerk or the city clerk or the mayor or others in positions of authority in these governmental buildings, and tell them that present them with the basic constructive notice documents that we've already referenced, but in follow-up there, tell them that we're trying to engineer communities of people in the local county and city here to, quote, responsibly self-govern, unquote. And in order to do that, we'll be, as the documents explain, we'll be needing to convert away from your Roman Empire municipal form of government that is not responsive to the needs of the people inherently, and we're going to need to convert over to the common law model. And thereunder, we're going to need to have to use a room to talk about these public interest issues. We're moving in the interest of the public, de jure public, not de facto public. And when we're moving in the interest of the de jure organic people public, then we've got the right to use public rooms, public courtrooms, public meeting rooms. That's what they're there for. They're there to serve the public. Now, please, assign us one of these rooms when nobody else is using it so that we can have a public meeting in the interest of promoting more organic and accountable government for the people in our local community here. And I really think a whole lot of mileage could be squeezed out of opening up communications like that. Things like that could be done through email communications, and phone calls and direct contact, no doubt. And especially after we've presented a number of the documents that are already typed up. I've got general documents typed up that explain not only how the present system of government is built off of the Roman Empire slave trader jurisdiction. That's what civil and municipal mean, and that's what they are. And conversely, document number 2 shows how responsibly self-governing communities are formed under common law tradition and under Bible Torah law condition. And when you hold them together side by side, juxtaposed, you can it puts the de factos in a quandary, because they can't make an argument in support of the civil municipal form of authoritarian government when we got the other model sitting on the desk right there in front of them that shows how the people can be empowered to responsibly self-govern. So I believe this is a win-win situation if we just get our ducks lined up right. And we can find, you can't do this yourself. You got to have at least a few other people standing beside you saying, yeah, I agree with him or her. And that, at that point, your person taking the leadership position and confronting the de factos has community support, obviously, staring the de factos in the face. And that's a bigger nut than they can crack, and they'll probably just run and hide and be glad to assign you a meeting room within the governmental building just to get you out of their office. So I'm really optimistic once we get enough people comprehending these ideas, which I love doing through this conference, and then a few little instances. I'm thinking more and more about trying to move forward with what I've got right here in Coleman County. Largely, my situation here in Coleman County, Texas, hasn't changed, but it's these conferences, talking with y'all, and rolling it over in my mind. Everybody would like to see somebody somewhere start doing stuff like this, and yeah, I'm chewing on the bone real sharp and hard here about maybe even me doing it myself here. I think I could beat the bushes and maybe find a few people to go into some of those offices with me. But that's basically all any of us need to try to move forward with these things. And again, the paperwork is the tip of your arrow, and then the larger body of breaking open the whole enchilada is your personal contact and looking them in the eye and getting clarity between you and them, which of you comprehends applicable law more clearly. And you've got to have it in the look in your eye to be able to stare down that city attorney or whoever else you might be confronting, because you are interpreting law more correctly and more accurately than they are. And if they try to challenge you, you gotta have it clear in your mind that there's a script to follow to put them in their place when they try to twist the law away from this grassroots empowering process. So I hope that shed a bit of light. I yield. Name and state, please.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Charles.
Thank you.
Name and state.
What was that?
We just have to get it done.
Yeah, knowledge is having the people aware. Just like I wasn't aware, and now I'm aware of the situation, and I'm ready to go forward for everything. And people are not aware that these things are going on. They think, what is going on? We have to follow the law. We have to listen to the... Because I was thinking the same thing. When an attorney, just get an attorney and we listen to them. When they tell us something, it was like, okay. But now people are becoming aware, and we get more people aware, and that's knowledge. Because they do this, and if they do that, they're going to go to jail. Because they don't understand. And they think this is the way to do it. That's the law, and we got to follow it. When we get that change of concept in their mind, because I used to believe that. When the police say something or when the judge say something, that's what I did. And that's, I think this coronavirus is showing us right now, there's a global epidemic. They're showing us that we are falling just like a guinea pig, and we just follow everything they tell us to do when it's ridiculous. Yeah. So this is the global spiritual warfare that we need to learn that we are in control of ourselves. We are sentient beings, and our unalienable rights are being taken advantage of.
Right.
If I may.
Name and state, please.
David in Michigan. Just wanted to add to that. It'd be nice if we could all find a way to come together and pull BLM and everybody else and stop for just a moment, take a turn around and look at Washington D.C. and all the federal courts and just say you're all fired and you're all defunded. And I would say that the police are so often on the middle ground and kind of squeezed between a rock and a hard place that if we were to assert ourselves at the higher levels and focus there, that a lot of the other problems would dissipate. I yield.
May I?
Thank you. Name and state, please.
Gloria.
Gloria, yes, please.
I think I agree with a little bit of what's being said by everyone, but for me, I can't forget that I'm a melanated person in Detroit, Michigan. So as much as I agree with your suggestion, Charles, if I don't have strategy, if I don't have a group of people on the same page as myself, and I proceed to do what you suggest, the first thing is I will be arrested and I may be killed. Now that's a fact. And I think when we think about strategies and how we are set to accomplish what we have to accomplish, we can't overlook the facts. Nothing gets accomplished by a dead person. So I'm all about Cliff's efforts and what he talks about, because that allows us to move forward in a way that is strategic to what we know we have to do in this particular space to get to where we're all trying to get to. Because we need a place to organize. We're looking at examples of events that are happening in Detroit right now, which seem to serve as grounds for where we may be able to start to talk about sovereignty and what we're trying to achieve here, particularly with the young people who are taking the lead with so many of the protests that are going on here, with so many of the issues, the crises that are happening, and they're looking for a solution. And most of them have not entertained what we're talking about tonight at all. So I think that we're moving slowly, we're moving strategically, not trying to get 100% because we understand we're not going to get 100%. Yeshua didn't get 100%, okay? Yeah. So, being careful, we've been able to we've been able to possibly identify a place and how we move around that place and do what we have to do in a very quiet and discreet manner, I think will get us to where we're trying to go and get us there successfully. Folks, sometimes, as we've discussed in meetings before, need to see what it is that you're talking about. They need to be able to touch how that something has worked in their lives, and that becomes the proof, if you will, that what we're talking about is legitimate. And once we can establish that with even a small group of people, that they will be the mouthpieces, they will be the messengers, and they will continue to spread the word, and we just have to be prepared for them when they come forth with their questions. And I yield.
Thank you, Gloria. Comments, questions, anybody else?
Yes, Lewis of Michigan. And thank you, Gloria. I agree with that, what you've just mentioned, 100%. I like what Cliff has suggested, and that would be for the localities across the country. I like what David has suggested regarding common law is common sense. Perhaps there can be some type of WordPress blog where the responsibility of maintaining that it would not fall on one, but it would be a group effort contributing to that, and also, of course, pointing to the various websites supporting our effort here. And lastly, unfortunately, I must take my leave of the call, but I'm very encouraged by the conversation on tonight's call. I believe that this Tuesday call was actually created for the, or not necessarily for, but at the request of the Canadian group. I would hope that everyone on this call, and I know some have participated on the Saturday calls as well, so I'm not identifying them, such as Nikki, and I know, Gloria, you've been on those calls before, but I would hope that everyone actually participates, find times on their schedule for the Saturday call at 5 p.m. On this, so we can continue this conversation, and that's really specifically for the states. Again, I've been very encouraged by the dialogue that I've heard on tonight's call, and I really think that there have been some seeds planted that we really can grow and build upon. So I hope to hear everyone Saturday at 5. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Louis. I guess you have to leave now. It's always good to have you participate as much as you can here, Louis. I know your schedule's busy. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd like to point out that it appears that there's a gentleman I can see that is with us that is from Georgia, I believe, and this gentleman has actually held the office of a Justice of the Peace in its municipal Roman franchise version, but there was a whole lot of power there. And this gentleman is named Paul Nally. I've talked with him before. He's a very talented fella. Paul, would you care to jump in here and maybe say a word or two, a little bit about your experience as a Justice of the Peace, I believe, there in Georgia? Paul, would you like to say hi to everybody?
Well, I would say hi, but somebody would say, no, not yet, but if you give me a minute. So let me just
All right.
say hello. But thank you for the invite. And may I ask a question of this group?
Sure, Paul.
Does everybody is wait a minute, let me back up. I'm 75 years old, so I'm quite as sharp as I once was.
Oh, come on, don't give us that excuse.
Let me just ask this. How many people here are board members of a corporation, sitting on a board of directors of a corporation? Anybody?
I'm presuming none of us.
Well, from the silence, I can gather that you folks don't know what you are. Because in this nation and in this group, let me just stick with this group tonight, each one of us are co-contractors in one of the largest corporations in the world, and we are co-contractors with our neighbors in a slightly smaller corporation, which is your state. So we are sitting currently on the board of directors, and nobody understands that. Nobody understands what that means.
Do you have a strategy, Paul, for how to bring this into beneficial application for our people?
I can provide you with a remedy for your grievances.
Okay, please explain.
Well, to begin with, you're all going to have to go to your state constitutions and your state statutes, and you're going to have to research the nature of the grand jury in your state. Now, here in Georgia, we have the most powerful, and I have looked at several states' grand juries, and we have in our Constitution the most powerful language that establishes a grand jury as an Article I independent court of inquiry. Now, first thing you need to know is it does not matter what a state statute says about your right of access to a grand jury. The federal Constitution and your state Constitution both guarantee you the right of petition, peaceful assembly, responsible exercise of speech, and the right to be heard. As the Supreme Court of the United States said in Matthews v. Eldridge, due process means a hearing at a meaningful time and in a meaningful manner that does not detract from your sovereign rights. Now, what you do with this particular piece of information is this. Number one, understand that the criminal statutes in your state code sections apply to all politicians. There is no person, no judge, I don't care what judges tell you about judicial immunity, I'm telling you as a former judge, no, you can't sue me, but you can criminally prosecute the living hell out of me.
Yeah.
Understand that, and understand that power. And here in Georgia, it is black letter law in our Constitution. In criminal matters, grand juries are judges of the law. Now, you got to stop and let that soak in.
Paul,
Judges,
if I might.
May I?
Yes.
David, go ahead.
I'd like to and you can continue, please, Paul. I just wanted to mention that I believe that Lawless America's Bill Windsor came from Atlanta, Georgia, and he was working on that premise and tried to access the grand jury in Atlanta and sat in the hallway with a sign so that he wouldn't be cited for obstructing the grand jury. He managed to get into the room with the grand jury, and they gave him enough time to say, basically, we'll hear what you have to say. We want you to come back and bring us your whole case. His stuff was basically that the prosecutors and some others were criminally acting criminal. And so they scheduled a day for him to come back, and guess what? When he came back, the prosecutor's office and the sheriff's office all surrounded him in the elevator and basically said, if you take one step out on that floor, we're going to take you to jail. And he never made it. He ended up trying to send the stuff. I think he ended up sending the stuff to them, somehow getting it into their hands, which got him the invitation to go back. And he was barred by the de facto from getting into that grand jury under threat. I yield.
We are carrying, when I say we, I'm speaking of a friend of mine down in Gwinnett County, Mr. Greg Howard. We are presently carrying on Bill Windsor's efforts. And we have hopefully we're going to be scheduled a hearing in Gwinnett Superior Court. But let me just briefly tell you how this happened. Back in February of 2019, we handed, or I say we, I wrote it up, and Greg handed it to the foreman, a petition to the grand jury. And the foreman took the petition to the grand jury, and they looked at their schedule, and they realized our term of court is ending in a few days. So what they did is they took our petition and included it in their general presentment and stated in there that the foreman was to turn over our petition to the next succeeding grand jury. Well, that rocked on for 6 months, and we have some correspondence between the grand jury officials and ourselves. The bottom line is they adjourned their terms and didn't hear us. So we have brought a mandamus against the grand jury, and now we're tied up in court because the clerk of the court refuses to provide us with the names and the mailing addresses so that we can have those grand jurors or any grand juror served with notice and summons. So we are fighting this out in the courts, and of course our next process will be to go to a federal grand jury. We will get a petition to a federal grand jury. I know how to do that without getting a United States attorney involved first. And then if we are obstructed there, then we will go into federal district court, and we will take the question, if necessary, all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. But we are still fighting to get to a grand jury. Now, here's what you need to know if you or any of your family members or your neighbors are sworn grand jurors. The first thing you have to know is that unless a grand jury was established first by the legislature rather than the people through their Constitution, then if established in the Constitution, your grand jury and you as a grand juror are an independent judicial officer. You answer to no district attorney. You answer to no judge. Now, a lot of states use the term about a judge who swears in grand jurors and charges them as being a supervising judge. That is a misuse of that word. He is an assisting judicial officer. He has no authority over a grand jury. You've got to understand that. Anytime, if you're sitting as a grand juror and a district attorney tells someone who has managed to get their foot inside the door that they need to hush and go on, you don't wait if you're the foreman, you don't wait on anybody to say anything, and if you're not the foreman, you don't wait on the foreman. You immediately get that person's attention, get that district attorney or the sheriff or whoever it is. You get their attention. You look them dead in the eye and tell them one more word out of you. You're going to be excused from this room, and this body will take up the question of your indictment for threatening a witness in a grand jury proceeding and conspiracy to deprive an individual of civil rights under color of law, 18 U.S.C. 242. Now, if that happens, you be sure to have 3 or 4 rolls of toilet paper handy. They're going to need it.
That's a colorful picture there, Paul. if I might, and it's really good talking with you again. I think it's probably been 6 months or a year since we've talked, and I've always enjoyed your slow, clear-sighted way of breaking down points into essential elements. But we've got, between myself, my vision of optimal strategy and yours, there's some differing views that I'd like to maybe take a moment to go over with you. Okay. Well, thank you. The focus on the grand jury as an institution for promoting the grassroots empowerment of our common people. I believe the general tradition of the grand jury and most of its practices has been to give color of legitimacy to the prosecution that is coming forward from the local district attorney or the state attorney general.
You're correct.
Thank you. But under pure common law and many state statutes, at least Oregon I know, and I believe I've seen others, they authorize individual members of the community at the grassroots level to present criminal complaints directly to the court and to invoke due process of law right there without going through the use of an attorney general or a district attorney or any use of a grand jury. And it seems to me much more quick and efficient to just allow the people to bring their criminal complaints before the court, and then at that point the court itself forms the trial jury. See, the whole thing with the grand jury and the district attorney, that's a big, ugly distraction, I do believe. Whereas the criminal complaint, step number 2, is presented to the court under oath or affirmation, and at that point, the next step, step number 3, is form the trial jury. And you completely bypass all of the distraction of the attorney general, district attorney, and grand jury process. Can you comment on whether you comprehend that would be a more efficient process, or do you see problems with my summary here? Can you comment, please? Thank you.
The initial problem lies in this concept. You are correct that the common law prior to, and I think it was September some date, 1789, common law prior to that date still exists in this nation as a basis of reference for prior court decisions.
Yeah.
And the same applies in Georgia, and I'm assuming it applies in most, if not all, of the other states.
Yeah.
But what we did when the Continental Congress finally sent out the Constitution that we have today to all the states, what they did is they took all of the good of which they knew to be of absolute essence, and they converted it from common law, and they took it out of the common law and converted it from common law into what we call statutory law.
Sounds right.
And that became the body of our Constitution. And then they realized, oops, wait a minute, we kind of forgot to include the fact that all these, and I'm just going to use a figure, 3 million people. I'm assuming there were about 3 million people in the 13 original colonies. That all these 3 million people have hired us to come in here and draft them a contract that establishes an organization whose function will be to guarantee their right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And by the way, the word property used to be in there, but they took that out and put pursuit of happiness. And if you think about it, owning property is a function of pursuing happiness. But anyway, so from that time until today, everything that we do in conjunction with our neighbors, applying to the daily management of our interrelationship, is pretty much handled by some government entity that has been established in law. And it is in statutory law. Now, the neat thing about the Georgia grand jury is it is established by the people in our Constitution, and it was picked up in its entirety, fully clothed with all of the powers and duties and responsibilities historically known to belong to the grand jury from antiquity, and it was set down in the black letter of our Constitution. Now, that's not the case with every state's grand jury. But what we need to do is understand that there are two ballot boxes. Actually, there's three of them. But there are two ballot boxes that give us a voice in managing our government. One is, of course, the right of franchise, which we get to exercise every 2 years, at least every 2 years. The other is the jury box, the grand jury box, where when you see a public official either making a mistake or committing a criminal act, as a matter of interpersonal relationships and deportment, you can approach that public official and say, hey, look, I witnessed you screwing up here. You need to make amends and make this right. And then if they don't do it, then you file a petition with the grand jury, or you call the grand jury foreman, or you talk to any grand juror member who, pursuant to their oath, which is, and all grand juries' oaths are statutorily defined, you will find that every grand juror who has knowledge has a duty under his oath to inform his colleagues. At the next time they get together, he's got to inform them. He cannot sit there and keep that information behind closed lips. And once he lets them know, then the rest of them have a legal, self-enforcing duty to investigate the entire matter. So once we understand the power of a grand jury and our right of access, then we need to go ahead and do it. As a matter of fact, I had occasion some time ago to look up Texas statute Article 20, and there appears to be a revision that's taking effect on January 1st, 2021 in Article 28.104, and it still does not prohibit any citizen from approaching a grand jury. So anybody with a criminal complaint or a managerial complaint, maybe the county commissioner's gone and hired somebody to manage the day-to-day affairs of all the departments, and he may be screwing up. And if he is, you take your documentation and give it to the grand jury and let the grand jury deal with it. Yes, sir.
It sounds like we don't have agreement on the value of the grand jury system here. Maybe you and I could talk about that a little bit more in private. We're kind of dominating the conversation here on just this issue, and I think since we don't seem to be able to agree on this point, maybe we should open up the discussion, allow a few others to participate here a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I have to go.
So I just want to. Wait. Paul,
I just need to go.
Wait. Paul, does that sound good to you, Paul?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Who is the lady that was trying to get the floor here?
Oh, I'm sorry. You were still finishing with the gentleman.
Name and state, please, ma'am.
This is Alicia. Yeah, because I didn't want to interrupt anyone else. I have to go because I have to take care of something else. I have another call I have to be on.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to say as you leave here?
No. Just good information. Everyone. The good people are rising to the occasion, and just keep it going.
Okay. Well, I do hope to see you again, Alicia. By then. Name and state, please, ma'am.
Cynthia.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I was listening to this, and what I've come across is that the law is on our side, but the problem is we're not on. It's like it has to come together of more people being aware. Knowledge is the key. And we do have the law, and what both of you guys were saying, whatever strategy that you're going to use, but what we don't have is that nobody is backing us when we go to do these different things, and they are nothing but thieves and liars, and they ignore us. So the whole thing is we have to get the people aware, and we're going to have to get a certain amount of people, because going in there by ourselves and stuff like that is not going to work. Even if we have the law on our side, they're going to ignore us. So it's about having the knowledge and being aware, and then we can enforce the law like we want to. But we have to get the people aware. That's what's really going on.
I think everybody agrees on that.
It's not the law. Yeah, it's not the law that's the problem, because we do have the law on our side. It's now that we're going to have to be the police. We're going to have to be the judge and everything and just take control of it, but we have to have backings of most of the people and being knowledgeable about it. Because they're using...
I don't think we need most of the people. I think if we just have a good crowd, we can get the reins of power, because most people are ignorant and just do what they're told. And if a small group of us convert from de facto to organic constitutional de jure, then we will be the ones telling all the other mind control slaves what to do. And at that point, peace and justice will reign, because we're trying to do it right. Are you?
Yes, well, when I say most people, I'm just saying that we can't go in there alone. Like, I go in there by myself. We have to have a group of people saying, no, we don't want that. And we're showing the law. Whatever we do, we need to present it together.
We definitely need a critical mass of people working together in order to bring about these changes. Yeah.
May I?
Yes, name and state, please.
Paul Nally.
Oh, yes, please.
That young lady has a very salient point. And I would like to recommend first, find out whether or not your state still has militia districts. And if you do, understand that the DICK Act, that's the common name for a piece of legislation from the Congress, makes very plain that any male, now you got to understand this was made back during a sexist time of our Congress, but any male or female between the ages of 18 and 45 are members, and the statute uses this phrase, are members of the unorganized militia. Now, what you could do in your militia district, if you have one, you can go out and encourage your neighbors to come to a meeting, an organizational meeting. And you can organize into a militia body, or you could organize into a corporate board organization, and you could discuss these matters and arrive at local rules and policy that would aid and abet you and your group of controlling not just your local government, but also through your grand jury controlling larger bodies. Now, there would be an idea, and by the way, you don't need that many people. You stop and think about you being in the courthouse one day on some other business, and you happen to be on the floor where the grand jury's meeting in a room down there, and you look down there, and there's 10, 20, 50 people all gathered around the grand jury door. You've got to stop and think, whoa, wait a minute. That's putting some hellacious pressure on our neighbors who have been sworn as grand jurors. So if you can get 15, 20 people or 50 or 100 who would be sufficiently patriotically devoted to putting boots on the ground and going before, standing outside a grand jury door, sending notes into the grand jury foreman, come out here, we want to talk to you. I mean, you get a district attorney, for example, that's got a burr under his saddle, and he comes roaring down the hall, I'm going to get rid of these ne'er-do-wells who are interrupting this grand jury proceeding, and then all of a sudden he turns around the corner and there's 50 people looking at him or 20 people looking at him. You think for a minute he's going to go down there and tell them they cannot exercise their right to petition?
Depends on how stupid they are.
Well, I'll grant you there are some who are stupid, but even the dumbest ain't going to go down and confront 20 people, not with an attitude he ain't. Now, he might go down and say, hey, folks, glad to see y'all. What's going on? Can I help you with something? He might have that attitude. But all you got to do is tell him, this ain't none of your business. Get your fanny back to your office. Well, yeah, I'm the district attorney, and if you want to see the grand jury, wait just a minute, Mr. District Attorney. There's a federal case from 1798. Actually, it's two cases. And it says that the business between a grand jury reporting criminal activity, having criminal activity reported to it, is privileged communication. Now, if the grand jury thinks it's some of your business, they can tell you. In the meantime, it ain't none of your business. Get back to your office. I mean,
well, doesn't the district attorney call the grand jury into existence?
No, sir. No,
Who
sir.
does? How are they called into existence? The clerk?
By law, the clerk sends a subpoena to a certain number of people to appear on a certain date to be selected and sworn as grand jurors.
Okay.
Now, a judge does have the authority to convene a grand jury if he deems that there is a problem a grand jury needs to look at. You'll have to look at your state law. I'm just telling you about Georgia. Y'all have to check your own state statutes and see what kind of scheme your legislators came up with. But in most cases, a clerk of court has a statute that says not later than 25 days prior to a new term of court, the clerk shall issue subpoenas to X number of citizens and the grand jury venery and bring them into court to be sworn as grand jurors. I'm just paraphrasing Georgia law. I don't know what y'all's laws say. But anyway, once you've got a core group in your militia district or in your immediate community, you would be surprised that it wouldn't take long before y'all were pretty much running everything in the county.
Well, we're definitely looking to be able to be running everything in the county. But I think at the county level, the proper word for militia there would be posse comitatus. Is there a reason you're using the word militia as opposed to the county level executive community known as posse comitatus?
A militia is an old term here in Georgia, and it all it means is that it's a group of citizens who can be called upon to bear arms in the event of an emergency or an invasion.
I dare suggest posse comitatus is a more empowering term than militia.
Well, the posse comitatus deals more with people who go armed to enforce laws.
Well, isn't that what we're talking about militia being used for?
Well, a militia is also potentially armed citizens.
Yeah. But
they don't.
Posse comitatus.
They're not looked upon to enforce laws within their county as much as they are to defend against invasion. But
I beg to differ with you. I believe the statutes in Oregon clearly declare that any time a peace officer is apprehensive that his execution of process paperwork may meet with resistance more than he is capable of safely handling, that he can deputize as many people as he wants.
Absolutely.
Well, that's local county judges and county sheriffs. That's posse comitatus jurisdiction.
Well, in Oregon, that's correct. In Georgia, we don't use the term posse comitatus.
Well, maybe not, but you've got counties in Georgia just like you got in Oregon and Texas, right?
Absolutely. But
it's an inherent posse comitatus is an inherent part of the county model of governing.
Well, in Georgia, we have statutes that do permit calling that permit a peace officer to call to his aid any citizen, but they don't call it. Not down here, they don't call it posse comitatus. Nor do they call it militia. It's just citizens' assistance.
Yeah. Frequently, posse comitatus is avoided in Oregon and many other states too, but I do believe the broader history of posse comitatus can infer the common law jurisdiction there. And if you look at the Sixth and the Seventh Amendments, especially the Sixth Amendment, it talks about the crime shall be tried in the state and the district wherein the crime shall be alleged to have been committed. Those districts, there's case law that defines those districts as precincts underneath the county. And, I believe you, as a justice of the peace there in Georgia in your past, are probably well aware, but maybe I'm wrong, but are you aware that the office that you used to hold there as Justice of the Peace, that, technically speaking, should be the level of a responsibly self-governing precinct jurisdiction? Are you aware of that, Paul?
Yes. As a matter of fact, if I recall correctly, I think my militia district was about 4 miles by 4 miles square. And And that was the geographic boundary of my jurisdiction, except when it came to hearing a complaint about a crime. And if somebody here in Pine Log had knowledge and evidence, or just knowledge or evidence, of a crime committed down in Chatham County on the Georgia coast, I had the authority to hear that evidence and that testimony and issue a warrant.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the warrant had to be sent down to Chatham County to the sheriff, but I still had the authority, as every other magistrate does today. See, the old Justice of the Peace Court here in Georgia was merged with the magistrate court back in the 1983 Constitution. And
that took it down.
And magistrates, even today, they can hear applications for warrants wherever the crime was committed. Not only that, but the United States Congress has given every judge clothed with the power of a magistrate in every state of this nation the power to issue a federal arrest warrant.
Okay.
So you don't need to go to federal court if you've got somebody in violation of 18 U.S.C. 241, 242, 245, whatever. You can go to the magistrate judge, or you can go to a superior court judge.
Well, can I interrupt Abraham Nevada? Paul, I'd like to ask you a question. That being the case, it certainly sounds like you have an overwhelming amount of jurisdictional power, the way you've just summarized that. If that is the case indeed, why are there just so many blatant and brazen corrupt public officials that go unanswered, unchecked, and function with brazen disregard for any law and order, running their own games in their political office and not being held to task by people such as yourself who very blatantly, as you mentioned, have the power to do something about it, but it just goes unchecked?
The simple answer for that question is indifference to ignorance and indifference to action.
And so people will allow this brazen disregard for law and order and all these corrupt public officials to operate with immunity and impunity?
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. That's absolutely insane.
No, it isn't amazing. What it is a failure. It is a failing in the condition of the human species.
Is there anything we can do about that?
We are, by nature, herd creatures, just like a bunch of cows.
Oh, gosh.
You get a bolt of lightning, and the next thing you know, you got a stampede.
And are you involved in any efforts to change that?
Yes, sir. I've already been to jail. I had a judge order a sheriff to put me in a jail cell, and then about, 20, 30 minutes later, sent 4 deputies in, put their hands on me, and forced me out the front door of the courthouse under threat of going to jail if I came back in that courthouse. And I did go back in that courthouse.
Was it that
send you to jail a second time?
Was it that you were missing more people, more bodies to enforce your position? If you had more people with you, like 10, 20, 30 people, they would not have been able to.
I'd had 20 or 30 people. I'd have gone in that courthouse and arrested that judge.
Okay, well then that's what we need to do. How come that's not being done?
That's why that's why y'all got to understand. You got to have a local group willing, knowledgeable, and willing to take a proactive stand in defense of liberty. Because right now there ain't a one of us talking on this phone who can look at any human being anywhere in the world in the eye and say, I'm free. You are not free. You are stolen. You are the victim of a theft every morning you wake up. Actually, you're the victim of multiple thefts. And I can prove the hell of it is I'm sitting here with all this danged evidence, and I can't get to a grand jury. Why? Because I've got 15 judges, 4 of them federal. I've got 10 district attorneys, all waiting to be presented to a grand jury for indictments. And I can't get to a grand jury.
We can bring you a grand jury. We can bring you a trial jury right here in this conference.
Well,
you don't think I'm serious?
No, I know you are. But my problem is this. Once I lay my evidence before a group of citizens, and let's say they make a decision that, okay, out of the 15 judges, we're going to recommend the indictment of 3 of them. Out of the 10 district attorneys, we find evidence that 2 of them should be indicted. Now what happens?
Well, I wouldn't be interested in doing an indictment. I would be interested in you making out a criminal complaint against them and signing it and putting it in front of a trial jury. And then we talk about, instead of issuing indictments, we're talking about issuing arrest warrants.
Well, that is a problem. Because
why?
The problem is there's not enough people who understand the responsibility of being an unorganized militiaman.
We got the law on our side. Law says we got authority to do that.
Yes, you do have the authority. You absolutely have the authority to make any arrest for any crime committed in your presence or within your immediate knowledge. That is a statutory right of a free man.
It's also a common law right.
That's where it came from. It's the common law, and it has been in Georgia. That common law right has been codified in statutory law.
Then how come we got to dink around with indictments?
Because the Constitution says.
No. You're entangled in municipal jurisdiction in your thinking there, Brother Paul. There's a section in most state constitutions, Colorado, New Mexico, Oregon has it really well spelled out that the lawmaking authority of the state, the legislature, has no special or local jurisdiction. They can't make laws regarding the jurisdiction of justices of the peace and town constables. Have you seen provisions like that, sir?
We have between us a contract.
No. We're talking. Contracts are irrelevant. Are irrelevant when a criminal complaint's on the table.
No.
Yeah. It's part of the social compact. The terms of the agreement of government is more than just a commercial interest. Contracts are commercial interests. That's lower level law. Contracts don't result in people going to jail. That's criminal law and fundamental governmental law. That's bigger than contract law.
For all of the laudable verbiage applied to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of our individual states, they are nothing more nor less than contracts.
Well, how come, if I might, how come arrest warrants are authorized under the Constitution, but anybody talking about contracts knows that there's no arrest warrants authorized under contract law?
Our contract provides that no person shall be held to answer for an infamous crime except upon presentment by a grand jury.
That's Roman municipal jurisdiction. That ain't our counties and our precinct level justice of the peace judicial jurisdictions, like the Sixth Amendment talks about and the Seventh Amendment.
I understand. Okay. I understand that there's a little bit of a problem in trying to comprehend a Constitution as a contract. But my position is it is a contract between you and I must comply with the provisions of that contract, those that are stated specifically and those provisions that are implied as of necessity.
Excuse me. May I? Okay. Who's got control over the, can show what I just posted as far as the contract goes, as far as the United States Constitution? And, sir, what would you say if you knew that it was fraud from the get-go?
Huh. If I knew the Constitution was a fraud?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know that.
Yeah, but, I mean, if you did, okay, you're on the phone, so you're not able to see the screen, correct?
Well, hold on. Bear with me just a second and let me look. Nope.
Okay, and I can't share it anyway. So, but if a few years ago there was a group of us that were looking into the Articles of Confederation, and we noticed that in the Penn version is that some of the word states was capitalized, but none of capitalized as far as the first letter for state, you know, in the Old English, and but where it said state, none of state was capitalized at all. So got curious, and so what I did was I dug into the 1755 Dictionary of the English Language, Johnson's Dictionary of the English Language. And what I saw was there was no word for states. However, you know, state was a republic, and it was the, you know, natural constitution rights, not rights necessarily, but constitutional being of an individual. So anyhow, curiously, I went to the 1785 dictionary, Johnson's 1785 dictionary, and the word states was in there. One definition for states, and it's also in the 1828 Webster's dictionary, and that is nobility. So, in 1787, when that Constitution was penned, it was actually intended to read, apparently, when in the course of not when in the course, I'm sorry, that's the Declaration. We the people, someone's private trustmate, of the united nobility, in order to form a more perfect union for ourselves and our posterity. Well, looking at the definition of Esquire in 1755 and 1785, 1755, both dictionaries, it says that Esquires are the younger sons of noblemen forever. Are you aware of that?
Well, I'm just glad I ain't one.
Say again? You're not an Esquire, huh? Well, no, but, you know, right there in the language, and I say this because I'm here in Pennsylvania, and of course, you know, Philadelphia is where all these things were signed, and, you know, the assemblies took place, and so on and so forth. But in the 1782 statutes at large, there is one statute at large in there, an act that was put together because of they wanted to prevent the erecting of a state within the Commonwealth. And in there it says ill-disposed persons, setting it not, you know, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, every, you know, sense of human, whatever, virtue, and want to erect a state within the Commonwealth. So already there were people with the mindset that they're going to take over and this country was going to be theirs, just from the get-go.
Yes.
And that's probably why the Declaration was penned as it was. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to, number one, and should have had a number one there because it would make it a whole lot clearer throughout the years, Dissolve the political bands which connect them with another. And number 2, you should have had a 2 in there. Assume amongst the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitled them. And number 3, a decent respect for the opinions of mankind that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Well, I think fraud would impel everyone to the separation. And in listening to the discussion tonight, it seems like, yes, it is that we need to get together in our communities. We need to have a strong group of people. But they have to be all on the same page, in my opinion, to understand just what happened, when it happened, how it happened. Because, especially with that in Pennsylvania, with erecting a state within the Commonwealth, and what they did in that con that was based on fraud to begin with, apparently, just by the wording of it, Article 4, Section 3 allows for a state to be, or a state to be erected within a state with the consent of the legislatures and of Congress, right? So, right there, the political bands, which, were all in motion. It was the Whigs and the Tories back then. Today it's the Democrats and the Republicans. Back in Yeshua's day in the 1st century, it was the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And it's the money changers. I can go on forever. And I have another call to be on at 9.
Hey, Nikki, Abraham, Nevada. You go, girl. You go, girl.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
I gave you the links, and I just filed paperwork yesterday locally here because of an issue that I'm having with estate matters that's been passed down from generation to generation and has never been mortgaged. It's always been in what our ancestors, my ancestors, came here for: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In return, they promised their full faith and credit.
Nikki, Nikki, I'm glad you're on our side.
Well, when Article 1, Section 10 was breached, and silver was taken out of the coin, we have become their creditors. We have to assume the responsibilities for doing things as it should be because of the seigniorage powers that we have. And in the chat area, I posted, somebody brought to my attention when I was putting that together about the Clayton Act, and that was 1914, a year after 1913, when the Federal Reserve Act was passed, and the 16th and the 17th Amendment came in, and the 16th Amendment breached Article 1, Section 9, and the 17th Amendment breached Article 1, Section 3. We have had no representation in the Senate since 1913 with that breach, and therefore, when you stop and think about it, that essentially nullified the 10th Amendment. Think about it.
Will the Honorable Lady...
Say again?
Will the Honorable Lady yield?
Yes, in fact, I'm yielding right off the call, but all my information is there, and there's more, Abe, and that goes back to the seizure of an American flag, which Charles knows about since 2006. Anyway, I love you guys. Talk to you on Saturday. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay, how do I get out of here now? Oh, leave. I got it. Yes, all righty. Okay.
May I say something also?
Name and state, please.
Cynthia.
Hi, Cynthia. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, she put it because she knows a lot about the law. That's what I was really stating here. We're the people, we have the power, but we have to have the more knowledge, just like right now. For me, becoming more knowledge, I'm more powerful. Knowledge, they fear us. And that's one thing about it. If we can get more people, like she was presenting, and be more aware, because these people are lying and stealing, they're cheating, they're ignoring us because they have the vision. If you have the vision, you can control the masses. So us knowing, and you, like I say, you don't have to have everybody, but look how many people that is not aware. Look how many people's on this call. But everybody, even the people in my community, they aren't aware because they think this is the way it's supposed to be. But they know that it's something that's not right. But when they become aware, just a few of us just becoming aware, we are very powerful. But we have to come together and know what, like you were saying, know what the law is and what our rights are and how we're going to present it as a group.
Well, actually, excuse me.
Yeah, Paul. I think you did ask for the floor there earlier, Paul. Please.
That's okay. You are correct. The vast majority of this population have no clue what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it is that indifference to their ignorance that is going to be the downfall of all liberty. We've already lost some of it. But you don't really need a group. You need devoted individuals who will go out into the community and demand that the kids who are coming up today and still in school be taught.
Exactly.
Be taught about this government. Go back and have them read the Magna Carta. I mean, for Pete's sakes, there's a ton of information that needs to be put in these skulls full of mush to bring about a more enlightened group of people.
Paul?
I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Well, if I might engage with you just a little bit on that issue, how are we going to control what the public school fool system is teaching our kids unless we confront the county sheriff and the county judge and the local government officials and force a change in the manner in which the local community is being governed, because as long as these corrupted individuals are in positions of power, we're not in any position to do anything to help get the kids educated better.
Know the criminal law.
Then knowing it ain't good enough if you can't exercise it and you're not ready to exercise it.
Learn what the elements are in a statute that have to be proved at trial. Then,
the statutes don't control trial. Common law controls trial.
Then know whether or not the evidence addresses the elements to be proved. Then take it to a grand jury. And if it's a sheriff, prosecute him. If it's a judge, prosecute him.
But you're relying on the grand jury. Under your system with the grand jury, you can't prosecute yourself. If you're going to prosecute it yourself, you can take it right to the trial jury.
Not according to the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah, you can. You haven't contemplated the Sixth and the Seventh Amendment enough.
Charles, and this is Abe. Paul, this is Abe in Nevada. I would suggest an experiment, a deep experiment between you and Charles to take up your case and for him to form a jury verdict of our peers and do a criminal complaint against the people that you have targeted, and let's see if we can do something about it that way.
Well, now that you mentioned you're from Nevada, are you aware that your statutes out there provide you the right to convene a grand jury?
They also provide trial jury rights, convening.
Yeah, why insist on a grand jury when you can go straight to trial?
You cannot go straight to trial. The Constitution...
That's not what the Constitution says, Paul.
No court, no sheriff will enforce you manhandling some accused individual to a jury to try him for some infamous...
But that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing to us. They're manhandling us.
Well, then let's do it back to them. But you got to
Like I was trying to tell you about Iceland. That's what they did. The whole community got together and threw the electors out and put them in jail. The people we can do whatever we want to do if we're together.
Hey, let me tell y'all a short story. You may have seen it on the news. Down here in Brunswick, Georgia, a young black kid out running down the street one day. He gets set up on by two white guys, a father-son. The son takes a shotgun and blows that black kid away. I mean, it's on tape. It's on YouTube. You can watch that poor boy get shot dead. They didn't touch him, them two guys. Did not touch him for 3 months. Then all of a sudden, the whole community starts hearing about it. I finally heard about it. Me and a black friend of mine, law school student down in Ware County, got ticked off, and we both decided, okay, this has gone too far. So he got busy and started raising hell down on his end. I started raising hell up here. And pretty soon, all of a sudden, the district attorney in Brunswick transfers the case to a judge up in Ware County. I mean, not a judge, but a district attorney up in Ware County. District attorney up in Ware County wrote a letter back to the police chief down there saying, oh, it looks like them boys wasn't doing nothing but self-defense. That's the end of that. Well, we raised a little more hell. Next thing you know, all of a sudden, the state of Georgia's GBI, now they're getting involved. So they transfer it up to the district attorney in Liberty County. Well, my friend down in Ware County sat down one night, and he wrote a letter to the district attorney in Liberty County. And basically what he told him was, you either see those men are arrested and charged, or there's going to be 1,000 black men show up at their residence and place them under arrest. Well, lo and behold, the very next morning, that video hit YouTube. That district attorney couldn't wait to get out from under that case. It finally got assigned to a district attorney up in Cobb County, and those two men were arrested before that week was out. Now, when you promise, and politicians believe that 1,000 pairs of boots are going to show up at their house and place them under arrest, now you've got their attention. And it don't take 1,000. It don't take 500. 25, 30, 50. 100 be better. But when you've got that kind of devotion in any community, where that many men and women who understand what is at stake are willing to put their boots on the ground, you ain't got to be packing a gun. In the state of Georgia, you don't even have to touch an individual. All you got to do in Georgia is look somebody in the eye and say, you're under arrest for this. And that constitutes a legal arrest.
And then the people can convene a jury verdict and then have him charged as such and throw him in jail. Why does it got to go through the grand jury?
Because the Constitution absolutely requires it. There is no...
No. That's if the district attorney or attorney general is prosecuting the case. In our local precinct and county jurisdictions, under common law rather than municipal law, those statutory codes don't apply, and we can go straight to trial. It's clearly written in the legislative section that of the Constitution that these are sovereign jurisdictions that are beyond the scope of the Legislative Assembly, which is the lawmaking authority, and they're under the county is the source from which the state draws its authority, and the precincts are the source from which the county draws its authority, and those are sovereign grassroots jurisdiction, just like the Sixth Amendment clearly implies. You entangled way too much in municipal Roman way, statutory way of thinking there, Brother Paul. I yield.
Hey, Paul, if you consider what Charles is saying, then we just go to town and arrest all these turkeys and cook them up and eat them.
You can. Well, you can go arrest them. You most certainly can. You have that right to arrest for any crime committed in your presence or within your immediate knowledge. You most certainly can arrest, but they cannot go to trial without indictment.
That's not part of due process of law, Paul. That's a municipal add-on that is in violation of the traditional organic Magna Carta-based due process of law.
I don't care that you call it municipal. It is still a contractual obligation.
Contracts ain't law. Contracts don't govern who goes to jail.
These contracts do, my friend.
Well, that's under the Roman Empire system of government. If we're going to engineer something better under pure common law, then we got to get away from that gobbledygook.
No, you don't get
my
away
suggestion,
from that.
Hey, Paul, my suggestion is you and Charles, Paul and Charles, have a brainstorming think tank and hammer this out, because I figure if you guys could figure this one out and it's very concise, well, we're going to go to town and arrest us some bad boys and put them in jail.
All you need. What happens after an arrest for the purposes of this discussion is almost irrelevant. What counts is that a group of people show up at a corrupt judge or a corrupt sheriff's home.
But Paul, what you're saying is once it hits the grand jury, it's back in the hands of the district attorney, and then the people lose control of it again.
No. Not in Georgia. I'm sorry, I can't say about your state, but in the state of Georgia, there is a case from 1880.
But then, Paul, why are they getting away with doing what they're doing to you if it's going through the grand jury? Why are they getting away with doing this to you?
Because the grand juries are protected or intimidated, one or the other. They don't know we're there, or if they know we're there, they're intimidated by deputy sheriffs or district attorneys or state's attorney generals.
Okay, so then you're saying grand jury's got no backbone then?
They either got no backbone or they got no common sense, and they sure as hell don't have any intellect. I'm sorry to be so blunt, gentlemen and ladies, but
it's good to hear blunt, Paul. It's refreshing.
Charles, where did this Paul come from? This first time I hear him on the call.
You've been missing, Abraham. Paul is a gem, no doubt. But I wish I could disentangle his mind from that municipal jurisdiction a little better.
Just figure out a way to take contracts out of the common law, and then we'll probably be on the same page.
Well, contracts and common law is like oil and water. They're inherently different. Common law is about keeping the peace, and contract law, like mortgages and stuff, frequently causes breach of the peace. So they're opposed to each other in a lot of ways.
Listen. Now, I'm going to concede a small point to you here.
All right.
And let me do it this way. There is a way to settle contracts. If you want to sell whim whams and I need to buy 50 whim whams for my smoke grinder, then you and I can sit down and come to a contract agreement and put it in contract. And one other thing we can put in that contract is that the disputes arising from that contract will be handled by arbitration. We can agree.
Arbitration is arbitrary. That's not law, Paul.
Absolutely it is. Because the Supreme Court, January of 2019, handed down a decision, and it said, don't matter whether the judge likes the arbitration award, he must enforce it.
That's the root. The root of the word arbitration is arbitrary. Arbitrary means unstable, unprincipled, moral prostitute type law.
And if you have a corrupt judge, he may not have no backbone and may beckon to pressures being placed upon him. Again, taking that power out of the hands of the people.
Well, the power to manage government is always in the hands of the people. It's there when you go to the polls every 2 years, and it is there when you are sworn as a grand juror. When you're sworn as a grand juror, you literally sit as the conscience of your community.
Do you know the judicial due process? Its end result is designed to produce a final judgment. Are you aware of that, Paul?
Absolutely. There must be any litigation somewhere.
Yeah, and due process of law requires, for a final judgment, it requires unanimous verdict from a 12-member trial jury. Do you comprehend that, Paul?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, how come the obstruction of first going through a so-called grand jury when you can start forming the trial jury right away? I think we asked you this before. I didn't get a clear answer on why go through the extra rigmarole when if you want a final judgment, you got to bring it to a trial jury, and one way or the other it's got to go through the trial jury. And why go through the extra steps of the grand jury when justice delayed is justice denied, and you got to go through the trial jury anyway?
There is a process. If you will consider that when you accuse John Doe of committing an infamous criminal act or an act of moral turpitude, then right off the bat, that person's reputation is besmirched. It is tainted.
The trial jury can settle that.
Now, wait a minute. Now, keep in mind that even though that reputation has been besmirched a little bit or a lot, it doesn't matter, he still has a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. But there is a step that is necessary, that time-honored necessity of probable cause to believe.
Yeah, the trial jury can decide probable cause. Am I wrong?
Come on now, Paul. I think you're just about ready to be hired.
That is not a proper forum. There are rules of practice and procedure which govern each step.
Well, that's the Roman Empire model of slave traders' jurisdiction. If we want a more perfect...
Hold on, Charles, please. But Paul, it's not working. It's not working. If it's not working, it means it's broken.
If it's broken, because people don't know and understand how to make it work. They don't know.
It's supposed to work automatically. You shouldn't have to show up in front of somebody's house with 100 people with intimidation. That should not have to be a requirement. Right? If the system wasn't so broken, we wouldn't have to be arming up militias to run up to somebody's house without guns, even without the guns, and just look them in the eye.
No, now wait a minute, hold on. Just because you call out the militia doesn't mean they have to show up armed.
All right, I get it, but you still got to look them in the eye, like you said, and you got to stare them down and arrest them. Why have to go through all those aggressive, assertive steps when if the system wasn't broken to begin with, it would function properly? And with that damn grand jury in the way stopping us from getting our verdict trials, then why go through the unnecessary step for a system that we admit is broken? Because intimidation seems to be the only way to get what you want, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Well, you see, that gets us back to the point of, do we have a contract that governs our interpersonal relationships, or do we have something else?
We got something else. We got breach of the peace under common law, and if there's no breach of the peace, then there's no crime, and the person should go free, irrelevant to what contracts you might be entangled in.
You're correct if it weren't for the fact that we have the Constitution, and when the Constitution don't play contract law above criminal law. The Sixth Amendment's clear that criminal law is superior to contract law. The Constitution is nothing more nor less than a contract between you and me and all the rest of the group here tonight.
You're reducing the Constitution to commercial terms, to an item to be bought and sold in the marketplace. The Constitution articulates who goes to jail and how through the Sixth and Seventh Amendment, and that is more than just contract law.
Can you state me any legal theory from the common law which holds that a contract may not provide for a criminal penalty? I can't think of one. As a matter of fact, when I go back to the Magna Carta, I find that King John pledged in writing, Clause 58 and 61 and 62, that if any person was disseized of his property or his liberty, that the knights would take the matter to his court justices.
Yeah, in their own court at the precinct level.
Now, do you understand fully what he said there?
I like to believe so. I believe that was the point Lysander Spooner dwelled on in his book called Essay on Trial by Jury. I read the thing back when I was 29.
He said, King John said, despite the fact that I have sovereign immunity, if there is a question about property or liberty, sovereign immunity is waived.
It's also waived if King John's involved in a crime.
Well, absolutely.
Well, then that don't address the issue of whether or not contract law is equal or superior to criminal law.
It sounds like you're backing up the system in the way it's designed, in the way it's functioning, and it's anti-people. And you've stated as such because it's railroading you, and it appears as though for some reason it looks like you drank the Kool-Aid.
The abuse of the provisions of the contract are what has plagued me for so many years. And the pitiful part of it is all the neighbors here in the county don't understand what's going on. They do not know that they are being intimidated or that they are being cajoled, that their ignorance is being taken advantage of. They don't understand that. And it's a sad state of affairs. We have a beautiful document, well-written document, to govern the everyday. As a matter of fact, I can now say at the age of 75, based on my years being involved in the law, I can absolutely state with certainty that in the state of Georgia, there is not one problem faced by any citizen which would give them cause for a grievance for which the law in this state and this nation does not provide them a remedy. Not one. I cannot name one grievance that does not have a remedy in the black letter of statutory law.
But Paul, you have to be able to actualize that remedy. when these people line up all their ducks, it's impossible for us to get through the barrier.
And why can we not? Because of the ignorance of the people. And we have to see to their education. That's what I'm all about, is educating people, or trying to educate them, trying to help them understand, you know, there ain't a problem out here that you can have for which there's not a remedy in the law. But you got to go find that remedy. Well,
okay, but Paul, if you factor in what Nikki said it was fraud from the beginning, and if you accept what she says as truth.
Well, I hate she got away, because I wanted to know if she had ever heard the adage that fraud vitiates all. Because if she can prove fraud to a Georgia grand jury, then the Constitution just goes out the window.
And then what takes its place? Are we back to the Confederation?
No, we're back to anarchy, because then every man becomes a law unto himself. That's the choice you've got. You either live by the Constitution or you live by your own law. Well, I know.
That's right. That's why we should make the law. That's why when we do this, we should also, the people that's very knowledgeable about the law, we, as the people, what do we want? We come together. If we're going to change something, we have to have something to replace it. So therefore, all these things that we're doing, and we're saying we don't agree with this, then we change it as the people. That's why we have to give each other, we have to have people aware and a knowledge, and people that's very knowledgeable, like you, Charles, Abe, and everybody about the law, and that's learning about it, come together and is putting things together for the people. When you take something from somewhere, you always have to replace it. But this time we're going to replace it or do whatever we need to do as we come together as one, and replace it with something that is fair for the people, like it's supposed to be.
If you have
we keep saying what they're doing, but when the people come together, what we're going to do. It's not about what they're doing now. We're tired of it. So it's about having some people being aware of it and people that's knowledgeable about the law, and then we get together and we make our own situation here. Say that we're not children. We can stand for ourselves. They have taken advantage of us. That's why they don't have it in the school system, so we can be dumbed down, whatever you want to call it, and not aware, and they can control us. But knowledge is the key for everything.
Cynthia, I think Paul would call that anarchy.
I think the conversation is deteriorating. I've muted Paul. I'll be glad to unmute him and Cynthia again in a moment. But I believe Paul and I are at a serious impasse. It sounds to me like Paul is so entrenched in the municipal way of doing things that he's not capable of looking at the more grassroots and direct and more meaningful, accountable process that true common law empowers us to do. And I think we've got a number of good people here that we should allow to talk about what they're concerned about a little bit, instead of especially me and Paul being polarized on this issue and just hammering away on it, and we both seem entrenched, and that's going to burn up the whole conference here,
okay,
just talking about something that neither one of us is going to budge on.
Charles, do you have Paul's phone number?
I do. And I think if you can pull up the screen there, Abraham, you can see it's on the screen, but I can unmute Paul here. But please, Paul and Abraham and others join with us. Let's change the subject. We're not going to make any progress on trying to build a consensus on optimal strategy, because I'm dead set that grand juries are a sack of garbage, and Paul seems in love with them, and we're just not going to change those things soon, it seems like. So we need to change the subject. I'm going to unmute Paul here and his second line, and then I'll unmute Cynthia also.
Paul's number is not visible. Paul's number is not visible.
Number? You can go ahead and give out my number and my email.
Okay. I've got it in my records. I'll get that to Abraham here, Paul.
Sure. You have my cell phone number?
I do see Sandra's number in the screen here, and I see your number on with your name there.
Okay. That's 770 number, right?
Yeah. And I'll give that to Abraham here. And we had Michael from Florida there a little bit, but he dropped off too. Michael's really a good head to have in discussions like this. He might have been able to help us achieve a compromise, like I think Abraham was trying to do too. But with all due respect, Paul, you seem quite entrenched in your beliefs about how wonderful grand juries are, and I don't see us making any more progress on discussing that issue here further this evening.
All right there, Brother Charles. I need you for a second.
Lewis, yeah, or Cliff.
Yeah, I think if everybody take out a moment, go on YouTube and watch Too Big to Fail, I think you'll get an eye-opener there as to how things actually run, and that may clarify a few of the question marks that everybody has. It's called Too Big to Fail, and it was showing how the government was about to go into bankruptcy a second time, and they got bailed out, and who they threw under the bus to do that, and the procedures they use in order to do that. And I think it'll be very entertaining. And the other thing is, I'd like to try to get back to that voluntary, I'm going to say voluntary account, because without a building so that when somebody goes to court, they can say, we're with that group. You know, we could be selling T-shirts, hats, something to get off the ground and take the group to another level, because we got to get some eye-to-eye contact, and that needs to be done as soon as it's safe. Let me say it like that, and I yield.
Thank you, Cliff. Sounds like the Too Big to Fail videos have focused on economics, and that is an important issue, no doubt. I'll try to look that up. And it looks like our numbers have dwindled here a little bit, so I guess we can open up the discussion back to just about anything anybody wants to talk about. Stafford, Kevin, I see you're with us here. I haven't heard much from you. Would you like to say anything? Hear nothing. Are you muted? Anyway.
Are you saying Kevin is? Are you talking about me, Charles?
Well, Kevin Stafford, I thought.
Right, that's my son.
Maybe that is you. Is that you, Cliff?
That's me, old buddy.
Oh, okay. I'll make a note. I won't make that mistake twice. Thank you, Cliff. Yeah, I guess we can continue with. I was a bit concerned when we have other people that might have something that a subject that maybe we can achieve a consensus on, or at least there's some remote chance of that. But it looks like we're just down to just our core group of people here. And gee, at that point, I guess we can revisit the issue of grand juries and stuff if Paul wants to continue hammering away on that, as long as until one of us falls asleep here.
Well, I'm enjoying every minute of it. I'm just trying to get it to where it moves a little faster. That's all, and I yield.
Yeah. That was part of my concern there. Both me and Paul are quite entrenched in our views here, and I don't think either one of them seem inclined to budge. So I don't know what further discussion on grand juries might accomplish here. But I mean, there's so few of us here now that I guess we can do it again. Paul, you feel like changing the subject or talking more about grand juries?
We can change the subject. We could talk about the arbitration award against the United States government.
Well, again, I'm not fond of arbitration, but can you just kind of generally outline what the sum of all that process is, about what happened and what the final result seems to your mind to be?
The group of people from around the country, led by a gentleman up in West Virginia, presented complaints to the federal government, and they noticed each of the major departments and did not get a response. So they did it again. Didn't get a response. They did it a third time. Did not get a response. The next time, they went to an arbitrator and filed their complaint with the arbitrator. The arbitrator sent the federal government notice to all the departments that were necessary. Arbitrator didn't get an answer. So the arbitrator sat down and gave them a default judgment against the federal government. And that default judgment mandates that the departments of all of the agencies in the government will provide to those claimants and beneficiaries. And the reason I say beneficiaries is because they filed that arbitration complaint on behalf of all similarly situated citizens of the United States. So now the government is looking at having to provide an accounting of all property and the value thereof held by the United States government. That means your house, your land, your car, your TV, your toaster oven, the clothes on your back. They've got.
And all this is the result of the arbitration decision?
It sure is. And it couldn't.
Well, how's this a benefit to our common people when we got government agents coming in and figuring out whether we got a toaster or not?
Oh, they don't come in.
Well, you just said it's based on whether or not we got a toaster or not, didn't you?
Well, let me explain. Since 1933, the United States government has ownership of all property of all of the people.
That's subjective. That's not objective. That's under declaration of emergency. That's not organic constitutional.
Understand. But you still pay property tax. You still pay tax on your ad valorem tax.
That's to survive. That's not because we admit it's right or lawful.
If he's trying to say what he's talking about is that because of what we call the...
Have you ever heard of the old English term riot, R-Y-O-T?
No.
Okay, you might want to look that up, because that's what we are.
Say what?
We do get a certificate of title to a...
We don't need a certificate of title. We got God-given rights, possessions 9/10 of the law. We don't need no paperwork. We're under lex non scripta.
What he's talking about, the government is assuming that you're taking up that position of what they call...
The corrupt devil worshippers are assuming a lot, and unless we engage with them on the points where they are usurping jurisdiction over us unlawfully, then they're going to win. We got to be on point, insist on our natural law rights and our common law rights, or else they're going to resist us under one or the other form of slavery.
And that's what they do with us because of, I went to court many a time, and because I was ignorant to the law, that's why I said knowledge is the key. And because I was ignorant to the law, this is assumed, which I didn't even know that there were, because I didn't know such thing exists. Most of us do not. So that's why I'm taking it from my point of view, from what I have been going through in my experience. And what he's saying is true when we're ignorant to the law. So therefore, that's why we have to become knowledgeable. Then we have to unify, because it's not their decision. They are playing on us with this situation. The strategy is because they're using our ignorance and our division against us. So people that's knowledgeable about it have to make the community aware of it. No, everybody is not going to come together. But the more of us, because we are tired of it. Just like I didn't know about it, but when I found out about it, because I know something was wrong. I know I was being taken advantage of, and I didn't have any rights. Well, I have it, but it was misused, and I didn't know how. When I find this out, it makes me a lot stronger, makes me more confident, and when people do find out about it, we will start making more changes. And one way to find out about it, we have YouTube here. And what YouTube does, and what a lot of, even with my metaphysics situations, what they do is they get on other people's platforms and discuss these things. And when these things are being discussed, people will be open-minded. Because when I started venturing out and trying to figure out how I can protect myself from what's going on now with me, just 2 months ago, I was just amazed of all the choices that I had that I didn't even know I had. And so when people become aware, and they're just like Charles, Abraham, Paul, you're very knowledgeable, Nikki, very knowledgeable about these situations, and getting on other people's YouTube is a start, and then they can start coming to your YouTube. Because that's what we do in metaphysics. We get on other people's YouTube that have a large audience, and we discuss what we believe in situations and different things and bring it to the people. And just like the Bible says, is about hearing. When you hear the truth, then you'll know it, and then you can make your decision from there. So we're going to have to broaden the people knowledge about these situations, and then take what we know and present it and show them how to do it, and we come together. That's one step to get it going.
See, a big problem there, Cynthia, is our community of people that posture as having some kind of leadership capabilities. It helps a whole lot for the recruiting of the common people if the people that are acting like they know how to lead a little bit, how to apply the law correctly, if those people that posture as knowing how law works properly are in agreement, so that all the leaders are in agreement about how to proceed forward. When you got some leaders saying you got to assemble grand juries, and other leaders saying grand juries are a sack of garbage, then the people coming in to the community, they don't know who to believe, and they get confused, and it stifles the ability to recruit new members, because even the community themselves can't agree about how to move forward.
That's very true. That's why you have to be united. Just like you and Paul have a different view about.
Wait. You can't unite if people won't agree and be reasonable.
That's my conversation. Like right now in metaphysics, we also have different situations. That's why the ones that do believe in the same thing are going to have to form it, and then the ones that do believe in whatever. It's going to be separation in everything that you do. That's why that what you believe in and how you feel like it should be done, that's you should be having on your team. That's how you pick your team, and you go out and you talk to the people about it. It's always going to be division. But as we get that unity, as you build your group for what you believe in, okay, not what Paul believes in, but as you build your group, or Paul build his group, and then you can start proceeding and doing what you need to have done, and if it works, more people are going to come in. It's not about what another person thinks of leadership. If you can't have, when you're in your, right now, what you believe, that's who you're going to have with you. That, and it seems so you have to build it together. You know, if I'm not going to be in what you believe in and you try to present that, then I shouldn't be on your platform doing that. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's who's efficient. And if Paul want to go off and do what he want to do, you go off and do what you want to do. It has to be that way because y'all don't agree on that situation. But you present yourself, and you present yourself for the people that you believe on, and you build your platform from there. Paul can also do the same. And if it works for Paul, then you might integrate and see. If it works for you, then Paul may integrate and see. But then that's how it has to be for right now until it's been proven to work and what is the best way to work. Everybody is not going to agree. But then as we start proceeding and building our own little group in our own community that agrees with us and it works, then more people will come in. Don't worry about if Paul agrees with you or not. It's what you believe. If you be that squad leader and go for what you believe, and you bring in that community, and then you see what you believe in how it works. But be open-minded as well. You are Paul. You see it working. When you see a situation is working, but if you never get it off the floor, you never know what's going to happen. So you build your community, you become your leader and whatever, and you can also be open-minded and listen to other things so you can build and make that situation or your group go forward to what you want and think. Because you tweak everything that you do, because this is, the law is not new, but this is new for the people to come together and see what will be best and how it will work.
Cynthia, your microphone is very garbled. It's difficult to hear you.
I'm sorry.
Well, maybe if you held the phone or your voice, it's hot. If you could be farther away from your speaker or something,
okay,
that would be better. But I think I gleaned from your words there that people that have irreconcilable differences between them need to try to form different groups so that people that believe in grand juries, they can go off and they can try to attract a lot of people to support their efforts at forming grand juries. Others of us are trying to form trial juries and trying to produce a Seventh Amendment jury trial verdict in more quick and efficient manners. And that's what this conference is dedicated to. Now, I welcome other people with other views to come in and share with us in general discussion. But when we start spending half of the conference talking about how wonderful grand juries are, when the leadership of this conference thinks grand juries are a sack of garbage, then I think unless we can change the manner in which the discussion is unfolding, then we might need to consider going just towards different conference groups or something.
Exactly. And then that's what the only way by y'all sitting here and nothing is being accomplished. What you do, you try to accomplish what you believe in, and you go for your platform. And if it's accomplished, then we know that works. Just like Paul, he can go for his platform. And if it's accomplished, then that's what works. What is the easiest way? We will never know until we try to go for it. But sitting here and arguing about it and trying to figure out what's one and nobody's doing anything is not going to accomplish anything. So what you need to do...
Your mic again is very hot. Your mic again is very hot. We can't hear your words. You're too close to the phone or something's bad there, and it's very difficult to hear you.
Okay. I'm going to try to talk lower now. What we need to do is start action on something.
We can't act when we got difference. We got to separate our agendas, and we act on a single agenda. We can't have multiple agendas, one advocating grand juries and the other advocating grand juries a sack of garbage.
Exactly.
So, yeah, maybe, and maybe you and I have kind of interacted here a little bit extensively, and we missed a lot of what you said. Maybe we should open up the microphone again to Paul or Abraham or Cliff, that are the only others that are still with us here. Cynthia, would that be okay with you? Cynthia, is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. Yes. Wonderful.
All right, Paul, Cliff, Abraham, would you like to discuss any issues further here?
No, sir, I'm listening.
I'm driving with a window open, so I got a lot of background noise. I got to mute out.
Okay. Abraham's driving. That's good. And Paul, I'm sorry, I'm kind of being a little bit confrontational with you here, but it does kind of look to me like we're on at an impasse on this grand jury thing. It looks like you're quite married to promoting grand juries, and it don't seem like I can say much to bring you to reconsider that proposition, is there?
I think you are quite correct, young man. I think I'll just sit here and listen for a while.
All right. Well, I could go into a rant about why grand juries ain't good, but that might not be in good taste here.
It would. I'd certainly enjoy listening to it.
Would you? Okay.
Yes, Charles. Definitely go into the grand jury.
Okay. Well, I've kind of got it scripted in my mind a little bit, and I have talked about it before. And traditionally, the traditional use of the grand jury has been to give, quote, color of legitimacy, unquote, to the monopoly on prosecuting criminal complaints that is in the hands of state or national attorney generals or local district attorneys. See, in the whole Roman Empire model of government, common people can't bring criminal complaints. And that's how it pretty much is now. The only people now that can bring criminal complaints are either local district attorneys or attorney generals from the state or the nation. That's the only people that can bring criminal complaints in the current court system. And grand juries are designed specifically to give those monopoly criminal prosecutors, quote, color of legitimacy, unquote, for the unlawful manner in which they're taking the right to prosecute criminal complaints against corrupted public servants and powerful people. They're taking it away from the common people. Now, see, if in contrast with that Roman Empire slave traders model of government, we actually do the bold thing like Magna Carta was talking about of allowing common people to bring criminal complaints before the courts, well, then obviously anybody can bring a criminal complaint. And if anybody can bring a criminal complaint, then what on God's green earth use is there for a local district attorney or an attorney general to also be prosecuting criminal complaints? They can still prosecute them, but they're equal to everybody else prosecuting. The office of attorney general and district attorney should be abolished because we're allowing common people to essentially be in private attorney generals. That's a well-settled term. That's a common person doing the criminal complaint, is the whole private attorney general thing. And that's the way it should be. That's organic constitutional law. It's not statutory constitutional law like under the Roman Empire model of government. And thereunder, if we comprehend that attorney generals and and local district attorneys are absolutely worthless to our common people, and our common people can prosecute their own criminal complaints, then the only reason for the existence of the so-called grand jury institution is to give color of legitimacy to those two offices of attorney general and district attorney. If we're allowing common people to bring their criminal complaints before the court and to start prosecuting their own criminal complaints before the court, then it's time to have the trial directly after the criminal complaint has been sworn to and filed. We go straight to trial. We go straight to forming the trial jury so that we can have the trial and make serious progress towards a jury verdict and a final judgment so that we can actually punish the criminal or declare him innocent in a quick and efficient manner. Remember, justice delayed is justice denied. That's a common law maxim. And so thereunder, because there is no need on God's green earth for the offices of district attorney or attorney general, We are no longer going to allow them to monopolize criminal complaints. Thereunder, our common people can bring the criminal complaints, file them in front of the clerk of the court, get a date set for the hearing, and notify the accused criminal, and just show up in court and start assembling the jury right there and proceed to trial without any distractions from the district attorney or the attorney general or any grand juries. I hope that summarizes my position well. I'll yield there. Paul or anybody else got any commentary on that summary?
Oh, Paul, please do rebut.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think there's much to rebut there. Let me think real quick. The concept of what the grand jury is an absolutely accurate statement as to the perception of what does exist. In fact, it does exist exactly that way today. That, however, is not the way the law provides. The next thing would be the concept of a private attorney general, and that private attorney general is a phrase that was brought forth from the United States Supreme Court in a 42 U.S.C. 1988 case. And the courts have since recognized that standing as a private attorney general. I still have a problem with going straight to a trial jury simply because of the presumption of innocence and the time-honored concept that before anybody is sent to trial, which is a very public event, there must be first a determination of probable cause. Now, that happens, and I don't know about other states, but that happens twice in the state of Georgia. The first time happens before a committing magistrate, and that, by the way, is mandated under the Supreme Court decision of Gerstein v. Pugh, that before a person is deprived of their liberty, and I mean before you're deprived of your liberty, you will be brought forth before a committing magistrate. There will be an initial judicial determination of probable cause. And then the second finding is the final finding of probable cause. And if a grand jury does not find probable cause, then you walk away. You're absolutely free and clear. So, it prevents the expense of, it can prevent the expense of a trial having to retain an attorney for weeks, months, maybe years.
No.
But anyway, there's, the perception of reality, as Charles has explained it, is absolutely correct.
Thank you, Paul.
Another question will be, would I have a choice? Say I was in that predicament, could I have a choice to either say I wanted it the way Paul wanted it and said it should be done, or should I have it the way Charles? It would be the person that's going to trial have that decision to say which one they would want.
Charles, may I?
Yeah, go, Paul.
Under the current system of law that we are governed, you would not have a choice. You would be charged, and you should be brought in front of a committing magistrate first before anybody turns the key on a jail cell door. Gerstein v. Pugh was a commandment from the United States Supreme Court to every court in this land. There will be a probable cause determination first. Now, you can be arrested on the scene and put in handcuffs, but the next stop better not be the jail. Or if it is, it better be for a mugshot and then go see a judge. Don't wait 36 hours. Don't wait 72 hours. You go see a judge right then for a determination of probable cause. And then, after that, you also have a right, because of your presumption of innocence, you have a right to petition or tell your attorney to petition on your behalf an appearance.
You prefer not to deal with an attorney. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
To petition the grand jury for your right to address them on the question of probable cause. Now, you can't go into a grand jury and conduct a trial. You're just not going to get away with that. But you can address them on the question of probable cause. You have that right, and they have a duty to hear you, a legal, non-discretionary, self-enforcing duty. And if they don't, they have violated your rights guaranteed under the Constitution.
If I might.
And I'll yield.
Thank you. What makes you think, Paul, with all due respect, that a trial jury could not just as quickly determine probable cause as your so-called grand jury? I yield.
A trial, keep in mind what's involved in a trial.
If I might, if you liberate from all the Roman Empire bullshit rules of evidence that is hindering it and do it through organic due process, that trial jury can go straight to the issue without the lawyers. We don't need no damn lawyers. The trial jury can go straight to the issue of whether or not probable cause even exists to support the complaint that's before the court. It can be done very quick and efficient, and there don't need to be no money on the table. There don't need to be no lawyers involved. It can be done real quick and efficient in our own precinct level 100-court jurisdictions, just like old common law times it was being done. I yield.
I would say that the problem here deals with an individual's ability to address a convened body. Now, I do not doubt for a moment that there's none of y'all here who could not walk in before any jury and address them on the question of probable cause. And then if they find probable cause and they say, okay, now, prosecutor, you go with your presentation of evidence, and Mr. Nally, you sit down there and be quiet until he's through, and then you're going to present your defense and your witnesses. And each one of you is a witness in anything that happened to you. But keep in mind, there are people out here, our neighbors, who are not blessed with the mental acumen to elucidate their. Well, actually, they some of them can't even conceptualize what really happened to them, and they cannot express themselves that well. That convinced them.
Paul, this is Abe. Paul, this is Abe. I think the mishap between the two of you, Charles, if I may suggest, I think it's because Paul does not realize when you say our trial by jury, go straight to, but it's going to be a trial of your peers. That means everyone in that jury is going to be people who know you, Paul, almost all your life. That means your peers. They want to find every reason to find you innocent because they're of your peers. So hopefully that should be a safety valve to protect your innocence if you're indeed innocent. If my son was guilty of something, I'd want to convict him myself. I would pull the guillotine myself. You understand? Because is my son is up to me to have raised him properly. So if it's a child by your peers, people who've known you all your life, they're going to be reluctant to quickly draw a guilty verdict if they're really truly from your peers. But if it's a bunch of random morons, sure, you're at risk.
And I think that's where the knowledge comes in with this situation, is because we're being duped by the judges and the attorneys. So therefore, I would go on child's side from what the situation is going on right now. I'm going to court with a bunch of morons who's just thinking about themselves. I have nothing to say, no right. But if I have a trial by my peers, I have more of fear right now what's going on. So what you're saying to me, just being the common person, I don't want to deal with those bullshitters. I don't want them. I know they're not about for me. So therefore, for me to feel that I'm going to be treated fair for any opportunity, I'm going to have to go with Charles right now. Just by listening to it and not knowing a lot about different things. I do not want them to put me in jail and do what they want to do with me whenever they please. That's where the people want to be stopped. We want that to be stopped. We want to be able to be what we say free. And we cannot be free by a bunch of thieves and liars.
Yeah. Well said, Cynthia.
And I think most people in government are nothing but thieves and liars. That's why they're going to government.
I am sick and tired of being sick and tired of this bullshit.
I'm getting sick and
I
tired.
think we've had enough. The grand jury has been functioning for what? 100 years? 100 years? I think it's time to stop that nonsense.
That's right. It got to be stopped. What will we have for our children if it's not stopped? The same crap? To be enslavement forever?
No, Cynthia, you have new and improved crap. It won't be the same. They'll improve that crap.
Yes, improved crap. Because it's getting worse and worse, but that's why we're becoming aware. Because enough is enough, and it's time for us to stop it.
By the way, which grand jury voted the coronavirus was real?
And I don't need anyone to tell me. Exactly.
Paul, which grand jury did they go to shut down trillions of dollars worth of world commerce? Which grand jury did they go to for that? Which grand jury did they mandate for masks? Which grand jury did they mandate social distancing? I don't hear the grand jury they went through.
Oh, I am so glad you brought that up. Do you recall toward the beginning when I started talking a while ago about Georgia's Constitution, black letter law, saying that grand jurors would be judges of the law? Well, it does. And if you have a complaint about some governor or some mayor or some alderman or some police chief saying, oh, you're going to wear that mask or you're going to jail, in Georgia, that question can be taken to a grand jury. And if the law does not permit that official to make that proclamation, that official gets indicted for violating.
Doesn't jury nullification have the same effect?
Yes, sir. That's absolutely correct. In Georgia, a grand jury can has the statutory black letter authority of law of our Constitution to nullify any law. And they can literally issue a special presentment to the legislature instructing them to remove that statute in its entirety or partially. That's the kind of power these people have got.
Well, I don't think people in public positions should have any more power than a common farmer.
That's right.
They are servants.
We do, by trickery and our ignorance.
Well, there's deception inherent in the Roman Empire model of government, and the whole separation of powers doctrine. That's Roman Empire smoke and mirrors designed to confuse us. See, under the common law tradition, the king had legislative, executive, and judicial power all rolled into one. He, like Moses, he held his own court, and he decided who went to jail and who didn't. That's much more quick and efficient and much less confusing because the due process of law can unfold more quickly. And at that point, case law precedent from your unanimous jury trial verdicts become your source of law. It's not majority rule law as legislatures. Legislatures declare law by majority rule. See, when you have unanimous jury verdicts making rulings on what is law and what's not law, that's not majority rule anymore. That's consensus building. That reflects the whole community. That's what the jury, if it's selected properly, it will reflect both left-wingers and right-wingers all coming together to do right before the laws of nature and nature's God. And that's how you build the unanimity of the 12-member jury verdict. And the case law that comes therefrom is really beautiful. It's divinely blessed. Whereas the present Roman Empire system of making law with legislative assemblies all separate from the judicial power, that's straight from the devil. And that's part of what's wrong with America and all the states here. I yield.
Paul, would you at least look into the differences of how the grand jury as opposed to the trial jury? Would you at least take a moment when you have some time and really delve into the differences?
Well, I really don't need to take that much time. A grand jury, when it comes to a criminal matter, a grand jury makes a determination of probable cause to believe. A trial jury makes a determination of beyond a reasonable, what's that word I'm trying to think of?
Doubt.
Thank you, doubt. And there's a considerable distinction between the two because it's entirely
Well, how about this, Paul? Paul, how about this? How about we do it our way, and we convict all the rascals that are giving you headaches, right? And after they're convicted and thrown in jail, because our way works fast, quick, and efficient, right? And you got them in jail, then would you be believers?
Well, let me ask you this. Let's just say that you go out and you round up 12 good men and women who agree to sit on a jury and hear a case. And
peers, have to be peers.
Peers of the individual. And then you go get a couple of guys and you go arrest John Doe and you bring him in before this group and you start presenting your case. What jail, if they convict him, what jail are you going to put him in?
Good question.
Well, that could be. I don't see that as being a main issue. That's a detail that can be taken care of administratively. The larger issue is administering justice and achieving justice in a quick and efficient manner. Justice delayed is justice denied. And with regard to your point about a difference allegedly between probable cause and beyond a reasonable doubt, probable cause is a lower level of proof.
Yep.
Beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you agree with that one, Paul?
Yep.
Okay. Well, see, at the first stage then, the trial jury can look at the case and say, well, gee whiz, do we even have probable cause here? And probable cause is fairly quick to decide whether or not you got probable cause, because that's just you're stepping in the front door in the due process of law procedure. That sound right?
Due process of law.
Yeah. Yeah. Deciding probable cause is a preliminary, early step.
In backing up to your comment just a moment ago, justice delayed being justice denied is absolutely correct.
Thank you.
But there is the counter axiom which holds that a rush to justice is not to be sought.
We agree with that, but forming a trial jury is not a rush to justice, sir.
Well, actually, it would be if you think along the lines of what would be equitable to an accused individual, keeping in mind that he's only accused.
Right.
Now,
I think you were presuming that an arrest would happen early. In the system I visualize, there's no need to arrest a person until after the jury trial, unless you caught him red-handed with a gun and the blood and everything. But if it's a general criminal complaint, then you don't arrest nobody until after the jury has their verdict, and you just notify the accused to come on in and appear. And if he's as innocent as he postures as being, then he's not going to be arrested or nothing until after the jury might perhaps decide unanimously, all 12, that he deserves to be arrested.
Well, okay, let me ask you this. What would you do in a case where you convene a trial jury and you send notice to John Doe that the jury is going to be assembled tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, and his presence is required along with his witness?
He's gonna be on the other side of the world.
That's what I was just thinking.
Well, can we allow Paul to complete his proposition and maybe me to respond before we go laughing and giggling and taking it all off point here?
Okay, go ahead. I think that's where he was going. Is that where you were going, Paul?
Yeah, that's basically where I'm going. The gob's gone. So, are you then left with having a trial in absentia?
We can deal with absconding criminals if that's a different scenario. We're talking. I think your primary concern, Paul, there was rush to judgment and convicting somebody accused. Isn't your whole thing about grand juries designed as a protection for accused people?
Yes, it is a protection.
Okay. See, if we drop the necessity for arresting before trial, like I'm advocating, then your concern about proceeding straight to trial jury evaporates, because there's no negative harm to the accused person by going straight to a trial jury, even though it might take a little bit long to decide guilt or innocence, and there is a little risk of maybe him running away. But I dare say we could deal with that, and our society would be a whole lot more peaceable if we ran all of society by just notifying people to show up because there's a criminal complaint against them, rather than arrest them and throw them in the gulag for months before they even frequently get to trial, like is the common occurrence now. Even though, I yield.
Well, that's a very good point. You shouldn't yield so fast, because you got people accused that sit in jail for 2 years because they can't make bail, and then they're found innocent.
You have hit upon one of the selling points, because when you send somebody notice that, hey, there's going to be a trial tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, you need to show up because you're the accused, bring your witnesses, and they don't show up, and they ain't to be found anywhere in the county. Now you have overnight created a more peaceable county.
Yeah, and the arrest warrant can be issued.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
This is a good thing. The arrest warrant can be issued, and it can be spread around all the neighboring counties. And I dare say chances are good that if all the counties are following similar peacekeeping process, that the person that's running from the law will probably be chased down and apprehended pretty quick.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this. Suppose instead of John Q. Public being the prosecuting individual, the individual who is bringing the criminal complaint, instead of him, it's some public officer.
Yeah.
Say it's the district attorney that wants to have a trial.
Why would we do it that way?
Well, you know, everybody knows the government can manufacture any piece of evidence it wants.
Yeah, why on earth would we want to have district attorneys or attorney generals monopolizing criminal complaints?
So what citizen in his right mind is going to stick around in a county that's fixing to have a trial for him when he knows the government can produce any evidence, even though he's innocent?
Oh, okay, so your point there is actually in support of my proposition. Is that correct?
No, not necessarily. That's the reason for a grand jury. They have the authority.
No, Paul. Charles is talking about getting rid of that entire layer of administration. Just get rid of those bums.
And have a grand jury of your peers.
Trial jury, Cynthia. Trial jury.
Okay, I'm sorry. Trial jury of your peers. I didn't know of your peers. Somebody that's going to treat you fairly, a lot better than you will be treated by these people that just want to take advantage of you.
Yeah.
So that's no brainstorming
situation. Can we allow Paul to respond, please? Can we allow Paul to respond, please?
Yes, Paul.
You're saying get rid of prosecuting attorneys and judges.
Yes. Well, amen. 1,000.
Well. We can elect our own common law jurisdiction, justice of the peace judges, like I believe you were in times past there.
Well, yeah.
That's right. Chew on it, Paul. Chew on it.
I can envision a social structure where that would work.
Thank you.
But I cannot see it working in this social structure in this nation.
That's because our nation's all screwed up.
Well,
we need change, big change.
Absolutely, but we need to remedy that. But anyway, I still see I cannot get past the absolute need for a fully informed grand jury. I mean, it has to be there to protect.
Okay, great, Paul. Isn't that what we've had all this time? Isn't that what we've had?
It's what we've had, and it has been misused, and it has been abused, and that's got to stop.
And you're refusing to consider the proposition and you're refusing to consider the proposition that a trial jury can accomplish all of the benefits that your so-called grand jury can accomplish. Is that correct, Paul?
Well, it's just not feasible to have a trial jury sit there and first make a determination of probable cause to believe and then turn around and become a trial jury.
Why?
Doubt.
What's the problem?
That could work.
Well, what's the problem with it?
You've got the same people hearing the same evidence twice.
It's 12 people. You think they're all going to be corrupted unanimously?
Well, I would hope not.
Well, common law tradition says it almost never happens.
Charles, it sounds like Paul has not read your documents.
I think that's probably true. But I do get the feeling that even though he's kicking and screaming, we are dragging him a little bit, inch here and an inch there, maybe. Hopefully, maybe if Michael's here with us or Lewis, and we got a broader community, and it's not so polarized with just you and me kind of weighing on Paul here. Maybe we can try to be reasonable and harmonize with the laws of nature, nature's God, and common law tradition a little bit more efficiently if we've got a group of more people here involved in this discussion in some future conference or something. What?
A group of 12?
Well, that would be if we were trying to do a trial. Like we could be talking about, like if Paul sees anything wrong with the coronavirus jury verdict, maybe Paul can see the merits of signing on as a juror. Paul, do you already know that this coronavirus emergency war powers declaration, where they're probably going to start forcibly vaccinating us and stuff like that? Do you agree that that's a criminal conspiracy and we've got the lawful right to resist that with force?
Absolutely.
Thank you. You willing to sign on a document as a juror saying that that is supreme law of justice being incarnated before us with a jury verdict like that?
Send me the document and I'll read it.
Okay, I think. Thank you, all of you, especially you, Paul. And the invitation. I know it's long, but there's a section in there. Near the end, I think item number 7, 8, or 9 is the coronavirus criminal complaint. Abraham right here is formally bringing before the court. I basically composed it, but Abraham's brought a coronavirus criminal complaint before the court. He's prosecuting it himself like a private attorney general against Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci and a number of other high-level conspirators. And I'm going to be the first juror. I've already got a rough draft jury verdict signed up, and the process, as explained in the invitation, is right there. If you find that section in the agenda items, once we get 12 people signing on to that, in light of the evidence, all of us have reviewed evidence relating to this. We know what's going on. We know that whole thing is based on deception. We don't need any further investigation. We can go straight to final judgment under a Seventh Amendment common law jury verdict right now, if we got 12 people that will unanimously agree on something similar to the rough draft jury verdict that I got through the web links in that invitation document there.
You know, talking about the coronavirus, up until a few weeks ago, I only had suspicions that the government, and especially the CDC,
oh boy,
were being deceptive in the information they were putting out. And I have a granddaughter who works at Floyd County Medical Center. And lo and behold, she calls up one day and says, well, I've tested positive. And she was quarantined for a week. Maybe it was 2 weeks. And she went back to work. And the only thing she had to suffer was, I think she had some indigestion, but it was a headache was the only other thing that she complained of. Then, lo and behold, her boyfriend comes down with it, and that's all he had. Now, I can see that an old codger like me might experience some serious side effects to a corona infection. I might could. I don't know that I would. But now that I have seen it work through my grandchild and her boyfriend, I am satisfied that these numbers of deaths that they are saying are corona-caused are greatly exaggerated numbers.
Right on.
They're
right on.
exaggerated. They're straight-up lies.
They're outright. Well, I can't call them outright lies. I can.
Listen, Paul, if a piano falls on your head, they will call it a coronavirus death.
That's right. If they do an autopsy after I've had a piano fall on my head and I've got an antibody for a coronavirus, oh, he died of coronavirus. Well,
but that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing.
I hate that. I hate that kind of manipulation. I really do.
Yeah,
and that's what the whole justice system is about.
Paul, that's not the exception. That's the rule.
Yeah, that's the rule. And it doesn't help at all when you got a government agency sitting up there signing checks for $32,000 just so they can get tested after they've had an initial indication. Whether it's
listen, if they get you for corona, they got $13,000 on the diagnosis, $13,000 on the diagnosis, and another $39,000 when they stick a hole in your throat.
Right, exactly. Now listen, let me tell you something. Oh, God Almighty, I am so glad you mentioned that. God Almighty, I hate to get on this topic again. Let me. You
having fun, Paul?
Let me share with you one criminal code section of Georgia law. It is called theft by deception.
Uh-huh.
Now, show me an individual who did not die of anything and tested positive for coronavirus. Now I'm going to lay out a criminal charge of theft by deception against whatever government agency paid out that. That is theft by deception of public monies.
But they're all doing it. You don't have enough paper to put those indictments together. It would chop down all the trees in the world.
You're probably correct.
Exactly. Not probably, he's correct. And even in the hospital, because they wanted to do a trick on Robert, and I wouldn't allow that for them to put that hole in his throat so they can get that $39,000.
Can I tell you a story, Paul? Paul, let me tell you a story, Paul. About a month ago. Yeah, about a month ago, I was having intense chronic fatigue. I'm 57 years old, 58. Intense chronic fatigue. I was virtually ready to collapse. I had a very difficult breathing, right? And I was resisting going to the hospital because I know what's going on, right? So I regrettably go to the hospital because there might be something wrong, right? As soon as I walk in the door, right, the guy and the girl with the fold-out table right on the other side of the door of the emergency room. And as soon as I walk in there, right, they got the table with all the masks on it, and they got the sprays and the germicide and everything. I go into the hospital, right, and I say, I'm having trouble breathing. And I'm having difficulty explaining this to them. I'm having trouble breathing. I've got shortness of breath. I feel fatigued. I need to see somebody. They hand me a mask. I say, you have to put this on. I said, I just told you I'm having trouble breathing. Well, coronavirus. Yeah. And then she says to me, right? She says, well, have you been experiencing difficulties with taste? I said, what kind of question is that? I said, I never heard that question before walking into an emergency room. Well, you're showing signs of coronavirus. I said, oh, you've got to be kidding. I turned right around and walked out.
I kind of hate you did that, but I'm glad you survived it because you do understand shortness of breath can be a coronary associated problem.
Yes, I thought I was having a serious problem with my heart, and I had to be turned away because, A, they were going to force me to wear a mask. I would have fainted right on the floor because I couldn't breathe.
Sorry to hear that.
And I've had these episodes before, years before, right? So look what's going on. I knew they wanted to get the $13,000 for the diagnosis, and within an hour they would have probably stabbed me in the neck and put a frickin' trach down my throat and got $49,000 or $39,000 or whatever the hell it is. And guess what? Guess what else, Paul? There was not one soul in the emergency room. And I've been to 3 emergency rooms in the last 4 months. And every time I went to an emergency room, not one soul in the emergency room. I've never been to an emergency room in 58 years where I didn't see not one person. Everybody is terrified to go to the emergency room.
Yeah.
People are becoming aware of exactly what they're all about. And I experienced that myself.
Yeah.
And that's what this system has come down to. And just like where Paul and Charles was talking about, there's no brain, for me, it's very easy to decide. I don't want them to decide anything for me anymore because they're liars, and you see the system to change. No matter how they got this, they're taking advantage of us, and there's no way that it could be right. I prefer being tried by people of my peers besides these people that I know that are thieves.
Yeah, people who've known you all your life. That's who should judge you.
The whole thing is Right now, just like the common people, and I'm a common person right now that's learning a lot, which I know a lot about metaphysics, and I know about my unalienable rights, and I know why you are having some of those different things, but I will not even discuss that right now. And I don't need anybody to tell me what to do, or I am capable of taking care of myself. And actually, they're not taking care of me. They're taking advantage of me. So this system has to change. And just like when people become aware of how this legal system is being handled, you'll be surprised. That's why I was saying, you're going to have to get on websites. Because even metaphysics, what we do to build what our ideas are and what needs to be done so people can be more aware of what this universe is about. That's another topic.
Yeah, but
what we go on other...
And Paul. Yeah, Paul. You know, this thing is not 200, 300 years old. This thing goes back thousands of years. They've been doing this for thousands of years.
And that's why they're and we allowed them to because we wanted somebody else to take control. And now it got so bad until it's unbelievably nasty. It's very ugly. They do anything to us when they want to. So you telling me, Paul, that I decide I don't want an attorney. I don't want the judges to tell me what to do when I know they have no interest whatsoever in the game they play. Everything is about tax. Everything. Yep. Money, tax, your contracts, criminal cases, all of them about taxes.
They should all get a broom and pick up a broom and start sweeping the streets because that's about the only job they're capable of doing. They should all be forced to go to work and get a real job. They should all be forced to do something productive and not be a parasitical drain on the system. They should all be productive. And that's what they're doing. It's a guild, and they're just protecting their market. It's nothing but protectionism. And
exactly.
That's all it is.
And they're all in the bed together. So do I have a choice? Paul, what I'm saying to you, we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. Even if you say something, we're just going to have to tweak it as we go along. We don't have a choice. What Charles was saying is a better plan than what is going on right now. Because we don't have a choice anymore. They have took control, and now it's time for us to take it back.
Well, Paul, you know the whole reason for the coronavirus, right, is because they know so many people are waking up so fast to all the multitude of corruptions that they have to step up the police state and the government shutdowns. It's all beta testing. They're doing the next, the War of the Worlds, right, where they thought the Martians came here and people started running for their lives. You know, remember that radio show, War of the Worlds? That was That was social engineering. They were doing beta testing back then. Imagine the beta testing they're doing now. Coronavirus is nothing but a beta test, and the people who pulled off 9/11 are the same monkeys behind the closet pulling off the coronavirus. It's the same people.
Yeah.
Always the same people. And now, because it's about our consciousness, which I wasn't going to get into metaphysics, which I'm very, very good at right now, and I studied it for 17 years. But what is going on right now, that coronavirus is supposed to, because we're being aware, and energy is very, very high, and that's why you're having chest pains and energy, because your body can't take a lot of this energy, high energy that's coming in, and a lot of us is getting really tired and stuff like that. But one thing about this, a lot of us are becoming aware, and we did not get afraid of the coronavirus. It did not do what they wanted to do, because it's about low vibration and high energy, low energy and high energy. And they're coming out now, my understanding, because we're talking about it through the metaphysical field. They're coming out with another, it starts with a B, bogus or something like that. And it's going to affect all the meats and the cheeses. They're going to put that in there. So
well, Monsanto's been putting stuff in the food system for so long.
Yes.
It's not even food anymore.
Oh, we don't have food anymore. We don't have food anymore. Everything is cloned, modified.
Paul, did you know that the Great Barrier Reef died, officially been pronounced dead, about a year ago? Did you know that?
No, I didn't know it had been officially called that.
Yeah, the Great Barrier Reef, the most fantastic thriving diversity of life known to man, the Great Barrier Reef, officially dead, not a living thing anywhere in it. And now they're doing whatever they can to try to resurrect it, but it's been officially declared dead as a doornail. The most viable life variety of systems known to man, dead. And they're saying about 50% of all the species, insects, bugs, bees, about 50% of all the species vanished.
And remember, Adam, was you the one that was asking me about Donald Trump the other day? You were asking me when was it you? I thought it was you, Adam, that we were discussing.
I don't ask questions. I don't ask questions about politicians. I've known about that since I was a baby in the crib.
Oh, okay. So it probably was Lewis. I thought it was you that you discussed. Then you got my phone number and email.
So, Paul, you're familiar with Monsanto and what they do in suicide seeds, right?
I've heard some various tales. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, the suicide seeds. So many farmers in India that have been farming for a multitude of generations. They bought into the Monsanto super seed, right? But the trick was that the seed, right? The seed, when you grow the corn, right? You would take a percentage of the corn and you would replant it, right? Monsanto, market protectionism, you would have to buy the seeds every year from Monsanto because the corn would not reproduce itself. They're called suicide seeds, right? And the seeds are supposed to be so resilient to drought, so resilient, it has its own pesticide built into the genetic structure of the seed, right? So the farmers were sold a lie. Thousands and thousands of farms across India failed, and they couldn't afford to buy the seed anymore, and they were committing suicides by the thousands. People who had farms in their family for a multitude of generations, just a whole epidemic of suicides. It's about maybe 7-8 years ago. You know, this is the kind of stuff I follow on a religious basis. It's disheartening, and this is all big corporations. And the same people running the FDA are revolving door policies from Monsanto's chief operators.
So, Adam, why do you think they're doing that?
Well, it's plain as day. They're weakening the species. They can't take us down in one fell swoop. So they have to go through a dozen years or so of aggressive contaminating of the air, aggressive contaminating of the food, of the water, and they weaken the species to the point where between political, financial, and all the different skill sets that it takes to run a civilization, they're weakening the species so that there's nobody left that has enough fortitude to fight, and that's exactly where we are.
What they're afraid of is what's taking place right now. What is taking place right now is that energy, that's I tell you, energy is high. And just like in the Bible, in Revelation, this is an opportunity, just like when they talk about the Mayan. This is an opportunity that people that are aware. And they have that opportunity of becoming individual souls. Because this whole situation of being on this
metaphysics, Cynthia, metaphysics is too elusive. It means many things to many people, and about 40 years ago I delved into it really, really deeply. And I wanted to be a yogi. I wanted to be a yogi at 15. I was studying transcendental meditation 18 years old. I was going through all the motions. And I was looking into theosophy and theology as a 15-year-old. I was reading the Encyclopedia of Symbology by Carl Jung when I was 15, right? And you begin to realize something, that all the sciences, the majority of them, are full of shit.
Because they work for this system. Because they work for the dominated control system. But you can go beyond that, because when you say you want to be a yogi, a master, well, I also wanted to be one. Okay? But what I did when I was studying, besides just listening and reading books, because you can have the knowledge, but you have to have you can have the knowledge of reading books and calling out quotes and all this other stuff, but it's the understanding of everything. So what I stopped listening to people, because we really don't learn the way that they say we learn. That's the way man say that we learn. But when you start going within, and then you start calling out to whatever you believe in and ask for answers, you get downloaded. And when you get downloaded, like right now, people be acting like really funny, like, do you talk to trees or anything like that? Well, you can't, because everything has life to it, and trees are one of the oldest, what you call,
it's the basic,
species.
it's the basic building block of life. The basic building block.
Exactly. And right now, I can go outside, and I have one of my best friends, my trees. When I talk to my tree, it's just like certain things. I don't like talking to people, but you and I talking on the same level here. When I talk to trees and stuff like that, an idea will just pop up in your head, and then I can go on the computer and it's confirmed. I can listen to a piece of music and it's confirmed what I just talked about. That's why you hear other people to say, I can talk to a dolphin, I can talk to a dog or a hawk.
All of life shares an energy field. All of life.
We're all connected. We all connected to everything. That's the oneness. Have you heard about?
Do you have any esoteric? One second, Cynthia. Paul, do you have any esoteric leanings?
I didn't hear that.
Do you have esoteric leanings at all?
I'm sorry, there's some feedback.
Cynthia, can you mute your call?
Sure. Yes.
Paul, do you have any esoteric leanings at all?
Actually, yes. But I don't.
Can you please elaborate topically, just very topically?
Well, how does reincarnation sound?
Yeah, past life regressions, reincarnation. Yeah, I've looked at that one really hard for a very long time, and you'd like to think that the soul reincarnates itself, and you might have been here thousands of times.
I'm not too concerned with thousands of times. I'm concerned about what I'm back as the next time around. It's not the fear that bothers me. It's the fear of what I will be made in the next life.
Yeah, I don't want to come back a cow in a slaughterhouse, as he does.
Well, transmigration seems at all logical to me, but reincarnation, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Charles, can you mute your phone, Charles? Can you mute your phone?
My phone is muted. I think it might be unmuted.
That's a nasty echo.
Cleared up now.
What else? Okay, that's good now. Paul, what else other than reincarnation? Hit me some more topically.
Well, right now I can't think of.
Paul, I could tell you're a seasoned soul, so I know there's a lot going on in there.
Yeah, there's a little too much going on in my life. At this age, I really wish I could retire, but I have so many people calling with problems, corrupt judges and district attorneys, police officers, and help.
Well, Charles will help you get a jury verdict.
Yeah, I can't help but think that Paul should be filing criminal complaints on those corrupted judges and district attorneys.
Let's try it out, Paul, and see how it works so you can get the mechanics down.
I've got a bunch of AO91s already typed up.
I don't know what that is.
An AO91 is a federal criminal complaint form.
Well, you know, the Sixth Amendment places criminal jurisdiction in our local communities.
Let's go get them, Paul. Come on.
I'm sorry. My brain.
Let's go get them.
My brain is about fried.
We have had a good workout here. Should we call it an evening?
Yes.
Yeah, and we got to give Paul a rest and go at him again tomorrow.
Next week. We got 2 conferences a week, Saturday and Tuesday evenings, and maybe we can hit it again next Saturday or Tuesday. Here, Paul.
You can rest assured. Number pop up on. It's going to be me. Sit here and listen.
All right, I'm going to say good night.
All right, good night.
Good night, Cynthia.
Good night. And Charles, when you get that package from me, give me a call, please.
Will do, Cynthia.
All right, thank you. Good night, everybody.
All right, Paul, good night. Charles, I'll call you.
All right. I think Cynthia was causing our echo there a little bit. You still with us, Paul?
Yeah, there was a little feedback.
Sounds like you still got it with you.
Yeah, I'm trying to get off here. Hold on.
All right, well, say good night because I gotta go check out these road maps on the inside of my eyelids.
I enjoyed the conversation, Paul. I do hope we can visit with it again.
Enjoyed it, gentlemen, ladies. Y'all have a good one, and we'll catch you whenever.
All right. Good night now.
Good night.
And, yeah, it looks like everything is winding down. I'm a little bit indisposed for the moment. I'm going to start heading right on over to the computer to shut it down here. Just a moment here. All right. We're heading to the computer to shut her down. What happened?